Pick it up because this is a condenser microphone right here.
Well, that's a good.
If we're in the home of D.Z. Oliver in Carlsbad, New Mexico on
24.
November 24, 1973. Mr. Oliver has been in the PCA potash mines for 25 years, and with us is Ronnie Arrington, who lives, where do you live, Ronnie?
Clifton, Arizona.
You're in the country, sort of out of Clifton?
Yeah.
In a mobile home?
In a mobile home.
Right. And I'll get you to tell your work history, but you're presently working in as a crane operator in construction at Clifton or at Morenci? At Morenci at the copper mines, right? And then we're going to back up and pick up your childhood and some other legends you want to tell about, okay? Now, how old are you?
31.
Okay. You're married to Dottie, what was her last?
Dottie Lambert.
And she was from Lonsdale in West Virginia, is that right? So she was from a coal mine family back in West Virginia, and you met her out here in
Carlsbad.
Carlsbad, New Mexico, where we're doing this cassette. Okay, I think you were starting to tell a story about what, Bosco, Joe?
When you first started
okay.
What did you mean?
Oh, well, okay. I think we're going, Ronnie, so what was that story about Bosco?
Yeah, I was telling Jackie, he's asking me one of the first jobs I was on. And I told him we went over. Bosco had this crane in Farmington, and I went out oiling for him. And I didn't know nothing about construction, it was my first job. We went out over there and we had this, they had a cement plant. He was going to move to a new location. This old boy, Bosco gave him all the chokers and the shackles, everything he needed to rig up this vessel we had to lay down. It was about 65 foot high, probably 12 foot in diameter. I was watching this guy. He didn't know what Bosco meant when he told him to shackle the eyes together on the chokers where they wouldn't come off the hook. So he throwed the shackle off the back side of this vessel. And, well, you'd have to really know Bosco to understand it. It really is. But anyway, the old boy throwed the shackle off the back side of the vessel, and we started to lay it down. And it had this guy on a front end loader, had a cable hooked to the top of it, He was going to back up with the loader and lay it over to the side while Bosco let it down. And he started backing up with it while Bosco started letting it down, and as the vessel broke over, them shackles, the eyes of the choker slipped off the hook, it dropped it. That guy on that loader, he had to run wide open backwards to run that vessel, and it hit right in front of him, right in that old powdery dirt, and it just flew everywhere, And then this egg shaped that vessel, and old Bosco asked that guy, says, "That where you wanted her?" It didn't even shake him up. That was my first job, boy, and I thought that crane operating was something really rough,
How old were you then?
Oh, 17.
17. And you were in Farmington, New Mexico?
Yeah.
What was under construction there? What were you building?
Well, we was moving a cement plant from one location to another.
Mm-hmm. That wasn't yet connected with the power development.
Oh, no, this was just a private job there in Farmington. Right. It just for
and that's your introduction to
I thought, well, them crane operators or something.
You've been a member of the operating engineer since you first started? Was even your apprenticeship?
The operator.
You had an apprenticeship in the operators?
Well, I worked 4.5 years, or 4 years before I broke in on the crane.
Yeah.
So
you actually began up there in this kind of experience. This was your first job.
That was my first job.
Right. Now your dad's name, he's called Pink, but he's actually H.P.
Yeah,
Herman Arrington.
Yeah.
And he's located now over in
Duncan,
Arizona.
Yeah.
But he was in Carlsbad for many years.
Oh yeah.
And was the operating engineer's business agent.
Right.
Here, right. If that was your first job, how long did you stay on it, and how much moving about did you do?
It was just a 3-day job.
Yeah.
No time at all.
When did you first settle down in the business? That was a hell of an introduction, wasn't it, to the building trade?
Actually, I was still going to high school at the time. It was between my junior and senior year.
I see. That's why you're 17.
Yeah.
So you
I
came back
couldn't get in the operators till I was 18. They signed and got me in. Well, just before.
Yeah.
Just before I was 18, I went to work with Navajo Dam, oiling on the cranes.
That was your first long-term job
Yeah.
with them when you were 18?
About 4 months.
Now, does that mean the building of that dam, was that connected already in any way with getting the water for the power plants that were going to come, or not? Or was this
No, I don't
nothing
think
to do
so.
at that time? Okay.
No, it was strictly a
Navajo reservation,
yeah.
a recreational thing. Where was it located on that? Was it near Farmington too, or?
I think it's about 45 miles, probably northeast Farmington.
Yeah. How did you live in those days? I mean, physically, were you in mobiles, or what would you do?
Yeah, we lived in a mobile home.
Was your dad up on a job near there?
He was working on the same job.
Did you
For
have
a while,
any other people you
he
knew?
quit there and went to work for the operators as a business agent.
Yeah,
That was in 1959.
that he quit.
Mm-hmm.
What year did you begin your work in the building trade?
59.
So that he quit then and came back
Mm-hmm.
to Carlsbad? And you were up there for a good while then after that, or not too
Yeah,
much?
about 4 months.
Mm-hmm. Then what other jobs did you go to after that?
Well, after that, I went back and finished high school my senior year. And I worked a small job here in Carlsbad for Stern Rogers. Oh, probably 3 weeks.
But when did your long-term jobs begin after high school then? What was you?
I
the
suppose
order
in
up?
1960 on the missile sites in Roswell.
And how long did they last?
All 3.5 years.
And what did they consist of substantially? What were you doing most of the time?
Well, we built 12 of those Atlas missile sites.
Mm-hmm. They're all, I guess, out of date now.
Yeah, well, I understand they was obsolete before we finished them.
That's it. What did it cost a piece? That was a hell of a taxpayer moondoggle, wasn't it? They were really. I read about that, but I guess it was true when you'd hear it even on the job, huh?
Well, yeah, several of the guys that worked for General Dynamics, they was
Engineers and all would talk about it.
yeah, they said that.
They'd been outdated in the technology before they.
I think probably the Titan was taking over at the time. Titan.
Do those missile sites still set up there, or are they not operational anymore? They're just waste.
No, they
sold them all.
Dismantled them.
They've dismantled them all. And,
They're just holes in the ground that they have to fill, or
well, they've got a cap over the top of it.
what are they?
Doors
How
are
deep
closed.
are they? 120 feet or something?
188 feet.
188. Were they quite? What would?
60 foot.
Is that like
diameter.
shaft driving in effect?
Right.
Very big, but
Right.
what would the diameter? 60 foot.
60 foot.
What does that compare with, say, with a typical mine shaft that you've driven?
Oh, the deepest shaft I ever worked on was
What was the diameter? I mean, let's take the diameter of a typical shaft.
around 16 feet.
And he was a 60-foot gentleman.
We sunk it with cranes.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't have any horse.
Just tell about it, to somebody that doesn't have to have technical knowledge of it. How would you go about it?
Well, we set these drilling rigs in, these track drills, and they drilled and blasted. And we took it down in a 12-foot lift at a time. And we had a big square muck bucket. I guess it held probably 8 or 10 yards of muck. And we'd set a front end loader in the hole with a crane, and then drop the bucket down, and the loader would load the bucket. And that's the way we mucked it out.
And what's the size of the crew that would work? Were you doing the 60-foot diameter
All at
uniformly at
one
a
time.
level
All at
and then
one
going
time.
down? Huh?
Yeah, we took it down 12 foot of lift.
And what were you hitting in terms of the terrain and all?
Oh, it was all rock all the way, hard rock.
And what were you doing? Was it drilling? Blasting?
Drilling and blasting.
And all of that was under operating engineers, or were you using different?
No, it was all crafts involved. Mostly shaft and tunnel workers and operators.
And what
some
would your
iron workers
particular
involved.
part be? What would you do at that stage, since you were what,
No, I was
technically
oiling
an
on a
oiler?
crane. Yeah, I was oiling on a crane, apprentice operator.
Yeah. So you were actually connected with the lowering of the equipment and the raising of it.
To a certain extent.
How about the muck buckets? Were they handled by the crane?
Oh yeah,
All that.
strictly by the crane.
After that missile job, then what'd you do in in your work experience?
Well, I went back. I went on a dam job up at Tucumcari at Ute Dam. I stayed up there. I think I was there about 5, maybe 6 months. I was all in on a backhoe on a drag line. First one, another piece of equipment, you know.
Yeah. Is there an effort to actually rotate you through the equipment, or does that just happen because you're interested, or do they usually make an effort to rotate you?
No, there's not too much effort to rotate you like that. A lot of times they'll let you swap off with another guy to get a little experience here or there.
You have to pick it up yourself pretty much and care.
Yeah, mostly on your own, right?
All right, after Tucumcari Dam, I'm trying to get you closer. I don't know the order of it. I know there's some stories about Silver City when you got to those mines, the Ajo mine, you know. You were at Kingman, maybe? Or did you ever work up in those places?
No, I never have.
Or Globe, Arizona. Did you ever work in that Globe?
Well, I was in Globe last year, but...
well, let me keep you in your work history.
After Tucumcari...
you're not a journeyman yet?
No.
Okay, all right.
After I left Tucumcari, I come back to Carlsbad, and that's when I set my card up, the journeyman card.
Okay.
And I was working on a shaft job for Winston Brothers. It's frozen shafts.
Then you were dealing with these were shafts for the potash mine?
Right.
And who were you driving? What was it? Which shaft for which mine was this now?
Let's see. First, I worked on shaft for Duval Corporation.
What year was that?
5 and 6.
5 and 6 would have been in the 1960s by now. Huh?
Yeah, it's in. This is in the latter part of '63.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
what depths were those shafts?
I think 1,050 foot.
Mm-hmm.
We sunk 2 shafts at approximately 100 yards apart.
Mm-hmm. Those were again about 16 foot diameter.
One was 16 and the other was 14, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The men and material shaft was 14 and the muck shaft was 16.
Now, were these Duval shafts further from Carlsbad than the others? Or about how many miles were you at that point?
About 25, wasn't it?
No, it was a little further than that. Actually, about
30.
It's out on the Jal Highway. I'd say 34, 35 miles from Carlsbad.
Now, were these to be ventilation shafts, or were they for regular raising of ore?
They tell me that Duval's got enough langbonite in that area for a 100-year mine. This was some new shafts they was putting down to...
They never did. In other words, did you reach the potash ore, or were you going for something else?
Well, potash, and there's a lot of langbonite, I think, which is a form of potash. I'm not sure.
It's a form of potash.
It's a
It's higher grade, but it's still potash industry stuff for the fertilizer and chemical industry. It's not a metal ore. Because Duval, is in copper now and in sulfur.
I think at the time Duval was talking about shutting down 2 of their shafts, the Will Weaver shafts. Is that Will's Weaver?
Yeah, Will's Weaver.
3 and 4, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
But, when I was on this job, I was working as what they call a head oiler or a serviceman, and they was running short of mine horsemen at the time, and I operated a crane for them there when we was putting the freezing units in to freeze the shafts.
Now, the freezing units are because you're hitting water in the strata? Or
Right. We went through
How much did you go through?
We went through a saltwater lake bed around 350 foot under the surface.
And how much of this was there? Was it a considerable problem?
It really was.
Were they surprised at hitting it, or did they not expect it?
No, they expected it. They knew exactly what they had before we started. And
They'd been core drilling and everything out there.
We drilled, I think it was around 20 or 26 wells around each shaft, and they pumped this frozen brine in and out. Well, it wasn't actually frozen, but we pumped it in at 47 below zero to freeze the ground hard enough that we could sink through.
Now, let me see. The process then is to sink what size diameter?
16-foot shaft.
No, but what are the ones you're driving through?
Oh, the
to
freeze
get
wells?
brine in? Yeah, the freeze wells.
I think it was 10-inch pipe, something like that.
Right. So the engineers had laid out their tactics.
Right. They pumped this brine in at 47 below zero, and it actually circulated in and out of the wells to freeze
This
the ground.
was a salt water they were getting.
You're right.
And so they needed a brine that could deal and freeze
They
salt.
needed something that wouldn't freeze that they could pump in and out of their wells, cold enough
Yeah.
to freeze the ground around it.
Oh, yeah, it was
Yeah.
just quite operation.
Didn't they? They ran
In fact,
into a
that's
similar problem in Canada with
Oh,
much
yeah,
worse,
a
didn't
lot
they?
worse.
Right, they sunk a shaft off of about 20 miles off the coast of Louisiana that they really had problems with on the island. And,
But this wasn't a big deal then, as it turned out. They knew their plans
no,
weren't
they
right
knew
in order.
they knew exactly
Yeah.
what they had from core test
Yeah.
and so forth.
How long were you on those Duval shafts then?
Actually, I went out for a 3-day job, and I was there a year and 11 months.
You were still living at home, or were you married by now?
Well, I was still living at home, and then I got married
Why
before
did
the
you?
job was over, yeah. But I broke in on a mine hoist on that job. And
All right, so
that's when I set my
you served
start
as a
to do-
hoisting engineer, and by now you're a full operating engineer,
Right.
member of the operating engineers or journeyman. And was this where you were telling me you began to get maybe you were discussing your temper a little bit last night? Was this part of where,
No, not really
or
so
did
much.
it come later, a little bit of that?
I think most of that was in Silver City.
Yeah. Here the serving as a hoisting engineer was not particularly burdensome.
In the sinking the shafts, it's a lot different than after you start development work. That's when your headaches begin really on a hoist. But,
in terms of the amount of signal bells and all that kind of thing.
well, you don't get so much of that ranking
No.
when you're sinking the shaft. Actually, it's just the same process day after day. You know.
Now, Juarez didn't happen yet. This kind of later years.
So that happened. That happened before I went to Farmington the second time.
The second time. So we're not to it yet. Okay, we'll get it in order. Because it'll be a tale of its own. Huh?
Well, this happened when between my first job at Farmington and my finishing high school. Actually,
They're going down to Juarez, that whole deal?
yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh, you were that young, you mean,
Yeah.
when this happened?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's tell about it then, because it was. Now, I guess what we ought to do is not act like this is extraordinary. Your dad's quite a character in terms of his dealing with people, huh?
It wasn't really extraordinary. I think it happened to a lot of people, you know.
Yeah.
It's just,
What happened? You and a couple of buddies. Just tell me what you did and where you went and what happened to you.
we went down to Juarez to have a little fun, drinking beer, you know, making
You were
all the
about
joints.
18.
Getting any pension?
Yeah, I was 18.
Yeah.
And we got in, I don't know exactly how it did start. We was all drinking pretty heavy.
It was the middle of the night, I imagine, by then.
No, actually it wasn't that late, about probably 11.
Okay.
And Kent got into it with
Who were the
somebody.
guys with you?
Ken Irby and Larry Nixon.
Both from Carlsbad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
High
High school buddies. Okay.
But,
You weren't in a modern new high school here in Carlsbad yet. This is
no,
the
they hadn't
old
built
one.
it yet. This was the old.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got down there and Ken had a little squabble with some of the local Mexicans around there.
In the bar. You're in the bar by now, or
Yeah.
you're out on the street?
We was in the bar. Well, we decided we'd leave this one place, and he'd have, I don't know, a few words with one of them. We got out. Well, there was 2 or 3 cops around there, and they started giving Ken a bad time. And finally, they was going to take him in. They decided they'd just take all 3 of us, you know. For I guess they hauled us in for
Drunk
being
and disorderly or
drunk
something.
and disorderly and
Yeah.
hell raising, you know.
Hell raising.
But they put us in the back of this paddy wagon. And they hauled us around, I bet you, for 2 hours. All over the place, or in the back of this paddy wagon. They
None of you spoke Spanish.
Oh, no.
Could communicate with them.
And finally, when we got to the police station, well, I think they fined us either $9 or $11 a piece. I can't remember. And I had about $40 with me, but of course they took that, you know.
Your pocketbook there.
All right, they took my watch and my wallet, everything I had, belt, everything but my shoes. And they let Larry pay his fine, and he left.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
It was mix-ups.
But, well, I guess me and Kent was raising more hell than he was when they took us in.
Okay, yeah.
And, well, you know how it happened, you know,
Yeah,
it's
right.
obvious.
Yeah.
But they took us in, and they locked us up in this little old room we was in. I guess it was probably 40 foot wide, maybe 70 foot long. And this was in January. Boy, it was cold.
No heat in it.
No heat, and they had this building. It's probably 20 foot high, but the walls are only about 18 foot high. In other words, it's kind of like a carport. The top is it's open.
The cold air, night air is coming.
Yeah, man, it's cold in there. If I remember right, I counted there was 120 prisoners in this one little room, you know.
Yeah. Hardly room to lay down. Huh?
Hardly any room for anything. Well, they put me and Kent in there, and it was all Mexicans in there except me and Kent and this one nigger from Houston. And I don't know what happened. About 2 o'clock in the morning.
Were you laying down in the corner of the
No.
man, or?
Me and Kent was sitting in the corner. The rest of the guys were laying around. But they brought a couple of Mexicans in about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They was drunk and disorderly, you know, and they throwed them in there. And they was falling around. And in the process, a big fight broke out in there among all the prisoners. Well, boy, we didn't have nothing. There was a couple of big old brooms in the corner over what they swept up with. And it's dark. It's so black you couldn't see anything in there, you know. And
no lights?
No, huh? And every time somebody get close to us, we had the brooms. We'd job them in the ribs or wherever we could, you know. Boy, and the next morning when it got daylight, well, we had that whole corner to ourselves, probably 10 foot of room extra. Boy, we had a lot of room. And finally, my brother come and got me the next day. Larry come
How did
back
he
to
think? Oh,
Carlsbad and told him, you know,
he'd come back and told him you were down there.
he'd put 2 and 2 together and figured out where we was.
Yeah. This is your brother, Rich?
Yeah, Richard. But he come and got us out. I tell you, I haven't been back down there too often since. I sure get this sigh with relief when I get halfway back across that bridge, too.
How about them tortillas?
Oh,
beans?
man.
How the hell they feed
How'd
you?
they feed you? That was the next morning?
They brought it in the next day, but I didn't eat it. They brought in an old bucket of beans and some old moldy tortillas. These guys was just digging in there and fighting over it, you know. We thought it was funny, but I'll tell you, boy, about late that next afternoon, them beans and tortillas didn't look bad at all.
You didn't partake the first time, but
No,
you thought they were a bunch of pigs up at the trough.
Well, they were starving those guys to death.
Yeah.
Some of them been in there a long time. Nobody knew where they was. There's no way to
They
get
were
out.
so poor they had no relatives with enough to get them out either. I guess.
Right, and there's no such thing as a phone call or
Habeas corpus.
you get down there, you just had it.
You're like, I'll get in it, huh? Well, that happened to you when you were quite young, so it left an impression on you.
Yeah, it really did.
What, you spent these, you drilled those shafts at Duval. Did you do any other shaft work here?
Right. Well, on these 2 particular shafts, when we was freezing them, well, the water broke in on us when we was down about 400 feet, and they shut the job off for 6 weeks so they could freeze it a little more solid for us to continue with the shaft. And Winston was sinking 2 more shafts for National Potash, and I went over and run a hoist as a relief hoistman over there for about a month till our job started back up, and I went back to Nash Draw.
Went to where now?
Back to Nash Draw on the Duval shaft.
On the Duval shaft.
Yeah, that was the Nash Draw project.
Yeah.
And after that, I went to Silver City. I quit on the Nash Draw job.
Was that the last time you had a long-term assignment in Carlsbad?
Right, that was in I quit
And
there
you left there in
December of 1964.
so you had to do with both the Duval shafts and these 2
And the Eddy
shafts.
shafts, yeah.
They were called the Eddy shafts.
Eddy shafts, yeah, for National Potash.
And then that's when you went to Silver City, which is what, copper, lead, and zinc mining, or
Mostly copper.
copper? And Kennecott is big over there.
Yeah, we
doing
didn't have
over
anything to do with Kennecott. This was for USSR. It was United States Smelting and Refinery.
They're over there.
U.S.
Okay. Was it a smelter they had there?
No. We sunk 3 shafts in Stern Rocket.
In Silver City?
In Fierro.
Huh?
In Fierro.
Fierro.
It's approximately 15 miles out of
Now,
Silver City.
Silver City, Fierro, and is Baird close by there, or what? How many places?
Yeah, it's about 12 miles to Barry.
Okay.
It's all laid out kind of in a triangle.
Okay.
But, no, I still got something. Anyhow, we sunk three main shafts there,
I'll take
and
stretch. You go ahead.
we sunk 3 shafts there. I was working for Boyles Brothers at the time, and we sunk those 3 shafts. It was mostly for copper.
This was for the U.S. smelting, and it was at Fierro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Fierro is got a very old mining history. I don't know. It seems to me it's back in the Colorado fuel and iron days they had something.
Probably is. There's a little place.
There must be remains of an old maybe smelter and mine there that might be 100 years old or something.
I don't believe there's ever been a smelter there.
Maybe no smelting. Mining is old there, isn't it?
Yeah, mining is.
Seems to me it was
There's a
one of the
little place
original-
called vanadium there, and they mine vanadium.
Do they?
Yeah, and
I know in the Colorado fuel and
nickel,
iron
lead, they have a
Fierro was
little.
one of their operations.
Yeah, they have lead and zinc and vanadium and so forth.
How do you enjoy Silver City?
I liked it real well. I was there 5 years.
5 years. Now, were you doing nothing but sinking?
I worked on.
How long did those Fierro shafts stay?
I stayed there on those shafts 3 years and 3 months.
How deep did they go?
The deepest was 1,550 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now, did you have to do with development there as well, or was it
Right,
all driving it?
we sunk 2 of the main shafts, number 2 and number 3. And then they started the number 4 shaft. And we was driving a drift from the number 2 shaft to the number 3 shaft. And I think
That was the construction company was doing that.
right. Boyles Brothers done quite a bit of the development for U.S. And this particular drift was, I think, 48 or 4,900 foot long. And I think 10 foot high and 20 foot wide. We drove the drift from number 2 shaft to number 3, and then
Was it on a level pretty much, or was it following an ore body, or was it?
no, it dropped from. Actually, it was just a haulage drift.
Oh, it was so there'd be a gravity.
Yeah, it was
Track
from.
rate on that.
I think it dropped from 1,350 feet to 1,550 feet.
Over a mile, actually. There.
Right, and
4,900.
no, it didn't go to 4,900 feet in depth.
No, I meant
The
the
drift.
The drift, which was a mile. You was dropping 200 feet
Yeah.
in about a mile's distance, is what I meant. So it'd be a pretty good.
Yeah, and then
If they were named track, they could.
That's
That'd
pretty
be a
good
gravity
grade.
run for a rail.
yeah, I was underground there several times. You actually couldn't tell how much you was dropping by being underground. You know, you didn't have anything to go by much. You couldn't.
It would look fairly level to you, right?
Right, to drop 200 feet in a mile.
In a mile's not very
You
much.
wouldn't notice
No.
it.
About 5% grade.
Especially underground, you don't have any horizons. You got nothing to take a measure.
We had,
on.
I think we had 6 levels in the shaft that I was on.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had a
You mean when they got ready to go with the mining, they were going to go?
right.
in
We had a
several.
we had a drift on the 300 foot level, the 400.
But the contractor didn't develop anything but this very long one you described between the 2 shafts.
No, we done all of the development.
How far in would you develop?
I think
Before you turn it over to
on the
them.
300 foot level, we drifted in about 1,600 feet. Now, all of these drifts, they went in several different directions. It was exploration, actually.
Yeah.
And on the
What were you running into when you would go down? What was your impression of what they were getting into?
Oh, they had a
It's
lot of
copper,
iron.
but were they running into a lot of?
Oh,
Because
it-
Fierro was
I'll tell you
originally
what.
iron mines, I think. So
That's
it
some
must
of
have
the
been a lot of
heaviest.
it there.
That's some of the heaviest muck that I've ever pulled with a horse.
It had iron in it then, didn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
Because
i-
Fierro originally, I think,
iron
was an
pyrite.
iron mine that was shipped up to Pueblo, Colorado.
There was a lot of native copper in it, and a lot of iron pyrite, and some of the muck was so heavy that you couldn't hoist but a half a bucket at times. Going through layers of it, it was actually just metal is all it was, and it was
Fairly rich.
real rich.
They had to almost determine what their priority was and what they were going to mine.
Well, I don't know how they missed it, but we sunk the shafts, and they intended to do all of their mining underground. And I guess maybe 600-800 yards from the number 2 shaft, they was doing some core testing, and they hit this real good ore body, real rich ore body of copper, 30 foot under the surface. So they started an open pit mine too.
On top, and still did underground mining. They were doing them in combination.
Doing both, yeah. And the thing of it is, they Stern Rogers built a mill for them to take care of this underground copper.
Yeah.
But this was a different type of copper, some way or another, on top, and they had to go through a different process. And finally, they had to wind up remodeling their mill, and they finally built a second mill.
Yeah,
take
two
care of-
different types of mills,
Right.
actually.
To take care
Well,
of
if you're running with 1 and 2% copper, that's one thing, and if you hit some 10 or 12%, I guess you're in another.
I think some of this run 28 to 30%.
It was rich, I remember.
30 foot under the surface. I don't know how they missed it with all their core
There
drilling.
must have been some meetings with the engineers about that. Huh?
Oh, I'll bet.
I was on that job 3 years and 3 months.
Seems like you enjoyed it. Was it because you came to know something of the mining too? Do you think that was the difference compared to potash
Not
or something?
necessarily.
Was it
you
the
know.
place and your age?
I liked
and
the place, and
You were just
um,
newly married. You haven't watched your
me
first
and the wife
child
both
then.
was happy, and you know.
Now, tell me about your life, if you will, for a minute. Like, as you were coming up as a kid at times, say like a lot of construction workers, would people live in mobile homes, even though they were fairly new then, or would you always live in a permanent residence?
Oh, we tried both. My father always had a mobile home most of the time. And,
So a lot of your raised
he had a home too, right? And, you know,
might have been in mobile homes. And then how have you? Generally, it's practical, isn't it, for
Right,
for a
it's real
construction worker to be in a mobile
yeah,
home?
it's the only
So what have you
way to go
tended to? You've tended to live in a variety of mobile homes.
there. Right, mostly.
And when you do that, my impression, but you correct me if I'm wrong, is that guys that are doing that, like miners and construction workers, it's like new cars in a way. I mean, they're visiting each other and looking at new cars, and they're looking at new mobile. I mean, it's a trading process, isn't it? More so than
Right,
permanent
uh,
residences.
The thing of it is, most construction workers look at it the same way. You don't really know for sure where you want to settle down. There's one thing about it, you know a lot of places you don't want to live.
Yeah.
But
35 miles northeast of Farmington. You don't think you want to live there?
that might not be too bad now. I don't know.
Okay.
The thing of it is, a lot of guys, and rather than go down and buy a home somewhere that he's not going to be able to live in but maybe 6 months out of the year, or he may have to leave his family there and then boom out somewhere to go work on a job and pay on it 40 years, it's not practical. I mean, you can go buy a new mobile home every 6-8
Right.
years, and you've got something new and modern, and
And you've enjoyed it, actually, haven't you? I mean, has it
Right.
been a satisfactory way of
Right.
life for you?
I really enjoyed it.
And it gives you an opportunity to concentrate your capital, in effect, on what, other kinds of things, like a pickup truck, or things that you might not otherwise be able to
Right,
afford.
or
if you
land
make
investment, or
land
there's
investment.
a lot of different things.
Yeah. Have you tended, you personally, go in for motorcycles or boats or anything else?
Oh yeah.
What have you
Anything.
used?
Uh,
What directions have you taken in recreation?
I don't own a boat of my own. We go boating quite often.
But your dad's got what? Is he the one with the big houseboat? Who's got
He
one?
got a pretty good
Yeah, it's a cabin cruiser,
Yeah.
23 footer.
And then,
You still got your motorcycle?
No, I sold it. I'm gonna get me another.
but you have ridden motorcycles for
Oh,
a few
yeah.
years. Any special thing you enjoy more than off the road?
Yeah, motorcycling's motorcycling anywhere. You know what I mean? It's just a good sport. And fishing, hunting.
Now you just come back today. It was before we started here. You finished since 6 a.m. this morning deer hunting. Is that right? Did you
Yeah.
get your deer?
Without any luck.
Without any luck. But you have had your luck.
The thing of it is, in construction, you work these jobs, you make pretty good money. The thing of it is, if you want something, you can go and get it. I mean, you don't want
Because you're
for
making
much.
the kind of money for it.
You don't want for much that you can't go get. You can't. Oh, I don't know. You can stick back money and save it, but it seems like it takes it from one job to the next.
Do most, let's take, your family's in it, so you've got a close-up impression. And you're a close family from my knowledge of it. Then you've got a lot of buddies on the job. To the extent you could generalize, the kinds of guys on this big like industrial construction kind of job. They make pretty good money in almost all the trades. Is that a fair statement?
Right.
And the work is fairly steady. Is that also a fair statement? Or
you hit slack periods, but not really that often.
And the weather out in the Southwest certainly is not a factor like in other parts of the country. It's not knocking you out of work for a couple of days.
About the only people that gets hurt in construction because of the weather is, say, something like road construction in the northern part of the north parts of the state, where they have to shut down because of bad weather.
But in this particular area,
you take a job like we're on over there, it doesn't make any difference if it's freezing temperatures or not. They go ahead and pour concrete, and they've got heaters. They've got space heaters they use to cheer down.
Ronnie, and I want you to correct me where you think my impression is wrong. Get an impression like, for instance, knowing coal miners and having sort of made it, got an idea of their lifestyle, you know, and the way they operate in terms of outlook, and, you know, where a lot of people think of them as exploited people. The public doesn't understand to them. Many of them enjoy it because they're sort of left alone. In other words, compared to a factory job, my God, they're not bossed at all. I mean, the damn foreman just better not push people too far. It's like a combat lieutenant. You know, he knows better in terms of, you know, where they are and what they're up against and that type of thing. So there's some freedom connected with it. In money terms, to many of them, the money in a small town living, the low cost of living is more desirable than chewing it up in a big city, you know what I mean? And so that I'd like you to comment to the extent you have observed it. Do you mean by saying that the dough is pretty good in the sense that you can, if you want a motorcycle, you can buy it. If you want a boat,
if you want a new rifle, you go get it.
Yeah, right.
You buy everything on the impulse. Most construction people do. If he goes down,
what he sees in a window.
Right. If you want to go down and you want a new car, you want it today. You don't want to order it and wait 6 weeks.
Well,
you want it now.
What did you drive? Let's just talk about what you drove. Say, you were telling me about last night by contrast with what you're driving this minute. You were driving what, a T-Bird?
A Thunderbird.
Well, what, your brother Richard?
He drives a Thunderbird.
Okay, I mean, you know, this is exactly, isn't it, in terms of what the cost of those things are, and what are other examples of that you've seen or that strike you in terms of not only impulse buying, but do you think it's outdoor living that appeals to the guys too?
Probably. And I don't know, the feeling that if you want something, you don't have to plan on it or wait for it. You can go get it now.
That is because you're putting in overtime, or is it even with regular work? Are you doing well?
We make enough on a 40-hour job. That most guys don't really want any overtime anymore.
Do you think also there's a contrast between guys of, say, your generation and mine, in the sense that if you were raised in a depression, you're all scared to death watching your unemployed father, like what the hell you're going to do when you got older, whereas you guys know you got pretty good pension. You follow me? You don't have to save, in a sense, for that day. You got Social Security and you got pension, you know. Now, how do you look forward, to the extent, maybe you don't know the facts, but if you stay with what you're doing, as young as you got into it, what would you anticipate your pension would be?
There's no telling me.
But if you had a guess right now, you know, extrapolating ahead with inflation and all, what do you figure, knowing about what your dad would go out with and a still higher figure you'd go out with?
It'd be hard to quote a figure on that. Most of the guys that's retiring out of the operators now, the pension in the area I'm in is $350 a month.
But doesn't it go up with a number of years too?
Right, it goes
so
up
that
with the...
You have more ahead of you than they had ahead of them.
And they increase the pension ever so often as more money
And
accumulates.
tell us, he would go out at something closer to
it went up $50 the 1st of November.
Yeah.
It was $300, it went up to $350.
I was assuming, say, in a few years you were a general foreman and still in the jurisdiction, then it's a still higher figure, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing's a multiplier, sort of, isn't it? So it doesn't cause a guy like you to sit and figure, hell, I better put $10,000 aside and get some high interest on it. I mean, that isn't part of the
savings. Everybody thinks about savings, you know. Some do, but some don't. But it's not a big factor. I mean, if
you wouldn't say a majority of the guys have that on their mind, like they might end up where they're scared of unemployment and scared of not having a pension.
Most guys, I'll tell you what, used to on construction jobs, this changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. Used to on a job, the guys would worry about where am I going to go, you know, when this job goes.
Yeah, right.
You don't have that anymore. Everybody seems to think, it's going to be better, you know. Yeah. They know they're going to have something to go to.
Yeah.
And
Did you,
What makes them this way? Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
Did you invest in some land around Phoenix?
Yeah, I bought 3.5 acres.
You
About
go
30
back
miles.
to look at it, or you just leave it there?
It's just land.
It's a little 3.5 acre ranch. How far out of Phoenix?
30 miles.
Which way? Toward south? I-10 way?
South, yeah.
Towards Tucson?
Between Phoenix and Casa Grande.
Yeah.
Around Maricopa.
Yeah.
Little town of Maricopa.
What do you pay an acre, or what's a ranchette like that?
It varies. It's according to whether they already have the wells on them or whether you buy
Whether you
dry
got
land
water
or what.
Yeah, right.
And they range from about
This is not city water up to your
No,
line
no,
or anything.
no.
This is a case of
Well
whether you
water.
got. Do you have water on there?
No, I didn't get it with a well.
Yeah.
I figured that I'd
so
wait
for
and
dry
see.
land, what's it? Did it go for 1,000 an acre? Or?
No, let's see. It's about, I'd say, $3,800 for 3.5 acres.
It's not bad. Not
yeah.
far off from that. Yeah.
And it ranges as
And you're
much
just
as
sitting there and like.
$7,000, I guess, for something
Wasn't
that
it?
has a well.
Wasn't it one of your dad's brothers that had a big land deal around Phoenix or something?
And he was a farmer there.
Yeah, and it
Cotton
turned
land.
out they moved in
His
and they
Phoenix
developed
grew
Phoenix,
around him.
grew around him, and he sold out and was $1 million there or something.
Subdivided it and sold out.
Yeah. Was he the one that went down around Yuma or
He's in Parker now.
Parker?
He's pretty well off.
I imagine he is. He's got a big feedlot there. I haven't seen him in years. I talked to him on the telephone. Oh, it's been 2 or 3 years ago, but I haven't seen him in years.
Is that Buster?
Your dad and you, I don't know your brother Richard, but I've seen, including Richard, seem to be rather close. You feel that way towards your uncle Homer that's here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Homer.
But Buster, is this the one that's over there? He's a little further off. He hasn't been in that kind of touch with people.
You know, I was around him when I was a real little kid when we lived in Phoenix, but other than that, I haven't seen him in
Yeah. Now,
probably 20
Pink and the
years.
brothers were all raised, you correct me if I'm wrong, on a cotton farm around Otis, or was it?
I don't know.
I'll let him tell about it sometime.
Yeah.
But they have some legends, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
You heard a lot of them
Several.
about
How
the
about, how
Model
about
T.
the Model T?
There's a
Homer
bunch
and,
of-
Junior had the time they fixed it up, you know.
Yeah, he said he don't claim he heard every story.
Oh, is that the one where the goat got on the roof of it?
Oh, that was a 34 Buick.
Oh,
And,
I missed
That knocked in the roof of the,
that old Buster
that was a
cut
convertible one.
cut the throat of
cut his throat, yeah.
Yeah.
go to Homer's pet goat.
That's because the goat
I
got
don't know
up
where
there
his
and went
Homer's
right
a
through the
junior.
roof.
I remember that.
Homer's
Yeah.
and Homer's. See.
But the goat got on top of the car as a convertible, and he sunk through all 4 feet right
Yeah.
through the brand new roof.
He pulled that damn thing out of there and cut his throat right there.
Homer cried and screamed. Having a fight. But the one time
Yeah,
I
he-
was referring to is when I think Homer and Junior had this Model T Ford. They'd worked on it like hell for, I don't know, several weeks getting it ready, and they couldn't get it started, and Homer was pulling it with a tractor or another truck or something, and it started, and Junior was, in the Model T, and he crammed it into the ass end of that other truck and tore up the radiator.
I never did hear about that.
Yeah, and he bailed out of it. Went around there and was beating the hell out of Junior, and your dad was over at an irrigation ditch had come over in the park. Your dad never told you that story? Yeah.
He didn't say he heard every legend.
Oh, well.
You were talking last night, telling about a couple of stories from your childhood around here. You remember those? You may remember a few others. You can tell about those. But one of them was, you remember I think we were joking about, what was it, Pink had been telling about how he'd gotten into a fight with Fisty
50 days?
Davis, but then you told, what was it, you and your cousin Leon had done when you're 5 years old? You mind telling that?
Oh.
Remember that? Some people were driving by and you were living here in
Actually, I was so
Carlsbad.
small, I don't remember. All I remember is the stories I hear about. Some guy and his wife come by and
driving a...
I don't know what they was driving. They was driving pretty close to the curb. Actually, he might have taken a cut at us. I don't remember. But I had an old broom, and I swatted his windshield out when he came by. And boy,
Broke it right in on him?
yeah.
Was it the kind that broke up on him?
Yeah, it's old cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. it all fell in his wife's lap. It seemed like it's on Sunday. I don't remember, but
You think you were about 5 years old when you learned to do that?
I hadn't started school yet.
Yeah.
But,
Started young, didn't you?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't want to let opportunity pass you by, you know.
Yeah. Now that windshield's laying in his wife's lap, he stops the car.
Yeah, he chased us. He was at my cousin's house, Leon's house. And he chased us all across the yard. He was grabbing at us. Of course, we was hollering and screaming. We didn't know what he was going to do. And there didn't nobody in the house know what was going on. They just seen him chasing us. The old man decked him when he come up.
This was Pink came out. Now he was visiting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he decked him when he come off the porch, you know.
Where did he crease him? Right.
I don't know. We went right on around. The old man went in the house.
Yeah. He laid him out.
I don't think he knocked him out. He put him down though.
You didn't find out what he was chasing you for.
I don't think he. I don't even remember if he whooped us for that.
He wasn't a whooping type,
Yeah,
was he in particular?
Oh yeah, if you got out of line, he'd get a hold of you. The thing of it was that this guy, you know, it scared us real bad and all that. And it had the guy come to him and like a man, you know. Well, he said he'd been
asked to, you know.
He'd have been glad to pay for his windshield and do
yeah.
anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
After he come there like he did, but he
Yeah.
just, of course, he'd have probably done the same
How do
thing or
you-
worse under the same circumstances.
How do you account in your own mind for what I don't pretend to be any more than a stranger? Pink is rough as a cob, say, in that story about Fisty Davis and all of that. At the same time, people tell me if he sees a rabbit run over, he sort of gets to him.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little, gets squeamish about little things.
Yeah, he's real tender-hearted.
Tender-hearted, unless somebody crosses it.
Right.
What's that? It's temper then, in part, or what do you think?
Probably.
And not being pushed around. You think you got part of that yourself?
Maybe.
I was thinking of trying to remember another story you mentioned when. Well, yeah, before Old Man Wade though, I thought Ronnie was telling us about he and Leon again. Weren't you? You were underage and were driving.
No,
And Perch Mountain. What was that cop?
Perch Mountain.
Yeah, tell about that story. What you were doing? What were you doing then? You were driving a.
He was riding our motorcycles. We was too young. See, used to you could get a license to ride a motorcycle under 5 horsepower if you was 13 years old. Well, Leon and I both had paper routes when we was 10 years old, and we had to have transportation.
Yeah.
And I had a motor scooter, and he did too. And you know,
We couldn't get papers.
we used them for our job and everything. Driver's license didn't mean nothing to us.
This was in Carlsbad, and you were delivering. Both of you were delivering
Right.
papers. Yeah.
And we'd had our motor scooters for probably a couple of years. And well,
Sort of old men in a way.
I think I was 11 at the time, and I got mine just before I was 10. So I'd had it a year and a half. And driver's license didn't mean much to us. We rode them all the time anyway. And they got to where they started stopping us. Well, we'd have to take the back streets or ditch them or do whatever we could, you know, to get rid of them. It was forever after us. Perchmouth, he knew where I lived. He knew
Now
where
this
Leon lived.
is a police officer named Perchmouth. Okay, here in Carlsbad.
Right.
Why'd you call him Perchmouth?
He pushed his lips out real funny. Had big lips. Everybody called him Perchmouth.
His last name was
I can't
That was
remember.
I believe.
McLean.
I believe it's
Yeah,
McLean.
he was a dog catcher last time I seen him.
Yeah.
He's an old guy now. He's probably retired.
Mhm.
He chased us home, and he was gonna. Well, actually, he stopped us before we got home. He was going to my house. He stopped us, and gave us a ticket. Well, we was mad. We took off wide open, you know, as fast as we could go. So he took after us again, chased us all the way to the house.
In a police car.
Right. He had his sirens, lights, everything he had going, you know.
Yeah.
We rode right in the yard and parked by the house, and he run inside the yard to get us. I don't know what he was going to do, but
Yeah.
Dad come out and raised hell with him, asked him what was going on. And he said, He said, these guys, he's going to take us in or something. I don't even remember what he did say.
Yeah.
But it was really funny to me. The old man had on an apron. Mom was working. Dad was in the house doing the dishes, which I don't think he's too happy about anyway, you know.
Yeah. He was wearing an apron when he came out.
Right.
The secret.
And Birchmouth was grabbing at us and raising hell around. And the old man decked him. He's going to take him in, you know. He said, how'd you like me to take you down?
Now, had he knocked him down at that point?
Yeah, he said, how'd you like me to take you down and see Judge McCall? Or he said,
Now,
he
he
said
got
he
up?
was going to take him.
Okay. Birchmouth got up from the ground and said that, or what?
Yeah. And the old man told him, he said, how'd you like to take me down and see Judge McCall? He took his apron off. Finally, Birchmouth left. I guess he realized he's on private property and he'd done the wrong thing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, he left.
Your dad had let him have it by then.
Yeah, he rode us all the time. Mr. Birchmouth.
Yeah.
Most of the time he couldn't catch us. Once in a while he'd get lucky.
Was there another story about you and Jim getting in some business with, was it Birchmouth or somebody else in the police establishment?
Did they have you up for
In St.
stealing
Cloud?
hubcaps and down to the police office?
Yeah, I didn't steal him any of them.
No, you
They
didn't
didn't
steal
have
them.
any evidence, but
I knew who done it, but I wouldn't tell. So
they called you
the
in.
hubcaps was in the car I was in. So.
Didn't think go down there and raise hell with a bunch of them that time?
Well, that was over
They told you.
Richard.
Oh, was that over Richard?
Oh.
Yeah,
I knew one time he went out there and like cleaned out the whole police station about something. I forget. I can't remember. What
They don't want to cross swords with him.
Well, you know, he's the kind of guy. If he's right, he's right.
Yeah.
And even when he's wrong, he's a little bit right.
That makes Pink a dangerous man to tangle with.
Oh, I wouldn't actually put it that way.
Well, is he pretty effective? He seems, I mean, his legends all add up to a pretty effective guy with his fists, too.
I think so.
Huh? I mean, you know, he's well above average. You just wouldn't want to, with his weight and his
Oh, yeah. He's
skills and all, you wouldn't want to cross
He's
with him.
above average.
Tell us a story about old man Wade. That's what I
Yeah,
want to hear.
what was it? Who was Wade now? He was,
Yeah, it's Leon's grandfather.
yeah. He was an old man
Yeah,
when you were a boy, or what?
I guess I was 16.
Yeah.
In the first car, 16 or 17.
How old was old man Wade then, Leon?
I guess he was 86 or 87, pretty old guy.
What happened?
I took my mother to work.
Where did she work at that time?
I was working in a food store.
Thrifty Way.
What,
Was
checker?
it Thrifty Way? Yeah, she was checking.
Mhm.
And I had to go by and pick old man Wade up to go over. We used to go over and cut Leon's folks. They was living in Texas somewhere. And we used to go over and take care of their grass, you know, around their home, cut the grass and water it. And first one thing, they just take care of it.
Yeah.
And he had a lawnmower. He didn't want me to skin the handle up on. He wouldn't let me close the trunk.
The old man was
Yeah.
there.
And we started over. Well, we took Mom to work and we started to leave. Well, I couldn't see very well. I backed out and a whole carload of nigger women running in the back of me and broke their bumper guards off.
You were backing up where you really couldn't see, so you didn't
Right.
know what was behind you.
And I backed out real slow because I thought, well, if I go real slow, somebody go around if they see me
But it
coming.
didn't work that way.
No, I think they did it on purpose. I don't know. Anyway, they hit us. Old man Wade, he was out there and he was saying they was going to have to buy him a new bumper. And it was an old beat-up old Plymouth car anyway. And, he was raising hell with them women. He finally got mad and started swinging his cane at them. And I went in and got Mom. They called the law and they come down and said, well, it happened on private property. Nothing could be done about it. And we went on our way and met them. They
The
were still
old man
saying,
was a little
oh,
on the
man.
mean side, if you
Yeah.
wanted to be. Huh?
Yeah, I guess he grew up the hard way. He was a pretty rough old codger.
What did he do? Was he a farmer?
I don't know actually what he did do, Jack. He was, I think he used to work cattle or something. He used to ranch a little.
Mm-hmm. He could be contrary.
You know, he was an older guy. He was practically retired, I guess, from the time I remember him. A little bitty guy. He was.
Oh, if it to be 87, he'd have to be well on in years for you to be
16, 17 years old.
Yeah, he was retired.
I never did remember. Well, hey, I did remember he worked at the firehouse. He was a caretaker at the firehouse for a while. Or he run the firehouse or something. Part-time, but he worked on ranches and stuff, too.
And then Mrs. Wade used to give you all a hard time, then?
Yeah, used to work all of it.
She's still alive. What's she like in terms of?
I haven't seen her in, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years. She's just an old feeble woman now.
When you left Silver City, going to your work history, where did you, that was about 5 years you spent there, and you lived in Silver City on at Fort Baird?
No, it wasn't Fort Baird, it was Baird. It's a little town 10 miles out of Silver City. I lived in Silver City, I guess, actually about 18 months, and the rest of the time I lived in Baird. And from there I went to Safford, Arizona.
What was the job there?
It was a shaft job.
For
I think Phillips Dodge was sinking that shaft.
coming down from Morenci or another mine?
No, this is
Way
about
off Safford. I didn't know that.
9 miles northeast of Safford.
An underground mine?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had one.
Phillips Dodge. It's at Bluebird Mine.
I didn't know about that mine. That was copper too.
Right. Yeah. 1,800 foot deep. We sunk the shaft.
And you were there how long?
6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I quit on that job and went to work for Sun at Morenci. We was moving dirt, doing a site preparation for the mill that Stearns is building now. I was on that job.
Morenci construction's been going on, seems like forever. That's been a lot of
It's
construction.
practically never ending. They're doing something there all the time.
And this was about what year that you went to?
1970.
Mm-hmm. When you left there, you went to Alpha, was that in between?
No, let's see, I was on that job in Morenci for 6 months. And they shut that job down. They postponed that mill site. The preparation and the mill itself, they postponed it for 2 years.
That was connected with the ecology objections and that kind of
I don't
thing?
think so.
Not?
Not on the mill.
Oh.
On the smelter, they continued to work. The job went right on the ecology part.
Why did they change their plans on the mill then?
I don't know.
That's what's Phelps Dodge, right?
Right. Nobody ever did get the true story of why they shut that down. Or why.
You worked about 6 months and then it was over.
A lot of speculation on why they turned.
That wasn't the one you were thinking
Yeah,
of,
that's
was it?
the mid-cap job.
You were getting ready to go up there and yourself, weren't you?
And I was off 3 months from that job. And I went to Iowa and I was down there 17 months.
17 months. Now by this time, some of your oldest child has started school.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
is the movement? He started in Safford. So some of this has meant transfers. I guess that's one thing that does affect you on these jobs, even if.
I don't think it affects the kids any at all.
No, I don't mean adversely, because I think it can broaden a kid too.
In fact, I moved a lot when I was in school, and
your dad was he was operating engineer. So
right, he was on the move all the time. The thing of it is, I believe that's about half of the kid's education is learning how to meet
I wasn't
people
meaning
and
to be
make
negative. I meant it's a part of the lifestyle that you have to take
They
account
have to
of.
move, yeah.
You know, that maybe you're also looking out for the kid having, just like you got things you're looking out for. Well, maybe he'll have a motor scooter when he grows up. You know, I mean, you got to think
got
about.
one now. He's got a motorcycle.
How old is he?
9.
9 years old. That's pretty good. You got him ahead of you, haven't you? You were 10. You told me when you just got a scooter.
Yeah, I guess he's
How does he get around on it?
Pretty good.
Yeah. How do you take care of him? Where do you take him?
I take him down to the farm mostly and let him ride it down at my dad's farm.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't ride on the road at all.
Pink has about, 35 acres up it?
32.
32 acres up it.
But no, as far as that goes, we moved Kenny in school, I guess 4 or 5 times. He's in the 4th grade, and he doesn't even pay any attention to it. I mean, I don't know, but what he doesn't look forward to.
Yeah.
If he was like me, by the time the old man got ready to move, I was kind of glad because it was about time for me to move on anyway.
Yeah, right. You'd crossed a few people up by then anyway. It sort of, it feeds on itself in a sense. It makes sense by then. It's a mobile society we're living in. There's more
Everybody's
people
on the
moving
move.
than there is still anymore.
Everybody's moving.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's probably, that's the difference between, say, when Pink was raised on a cotton farm and the way that, say, your kids are being raised.
Right.
I mean, it's a total...
To them, those kids, ever since they've been born, they've been on the road. We're always going somewhere.
Now, didn't you tell me you just bought a new, describe that new car and how many miles you got on it?
Man, it's a Dodge van. You got 17,000 miles on it since the
But it's
5th
a
of
big
May.
van. It's one of those...
Yeah, it's a maxi wagon.
Maxi wagon, yeah.
Well, actually, it's 8 passenger, and then
You've had it how many months and you got...
well, from the 5th of May,
5th of May of this year, and you got how many miles?
17,000.
That means you've been, I think you said you are going to Florida, or you...
Yeah, I'm planning on
you haven't done
next
any, that big a trip to put it on. It's mostly been running to Phoenix or
Phoenix,
running over
Tucson,
here.
Carlsbad,
Mhm.
El Paso.
You enjoy going to Phoenix and Tucson and
Oh,
those
yeah.
places. And the kids get mobility that way too, I guess, on weekends. What is it your daughter's into?
She's
Like
taking
the
dancing lessons, but Kenny's been playing football.
Mm-hmm. And that's what the Phoenix thing?
Yeah, we've been up there the last 4 weekends in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Football games, you know.
Yeah.
During the summer,
Now, what kind of league is that they call?
At Pop Warner.
Mm-hmm.
In the summertime, he plays baseball, and boy, that's where our mileage comes in.
Mhm.
Taking the kids, you know, sometimes you have to take them 40 or 50 miles for a ball game.
Yeah.
But if you live in Arizona,
Right.
I'll tell you what,
Those
everything
little
is,
towns, yeah.
everything, if you want to do anything, it's 50 miles any direction. So you just might
Right.
as well figure on driving.
You still have to go to Phoenix for union meetings?
Yeah, occasionally.
To Phoenix.
Phoenix and
The
Tucson.
local meets in one or the other place. I know I'm at I think Featherstone was at the business agent.
Featherston. He's
Featherston,
he's
yeah.
assistant business manager now.
Yeah. I think I met him in connection with the healthcare stuff we were doing. And after Aho, what was your job followed that?
I went back to Morenci for a month for Sant,
Yeah.
and I quit there and then went to Globe for Southwest Board.
What's going on at Globe? What we building?
Bechtel Corporation's building a new mill there for city service. It's a copper smelter, or not
City
smelter, a mill,
Service
yeah.
owns what? One of the copper subsidiaries? Did they buy Magna or what do they buy?
I'm not sure which one. It's
One of the big
it's a new one.
Inspiration, maybe Inspiration.
I'll tell you this is that old. It's in the Pinto Creek Basin there,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a name that they call that old mine. I can't remember the name of it.
Well, City Service is the mother company, the conglomerate that bought the
Right,
thing out.
they're just like Phillips Dodge or
Yeah.
kind of.
They're all conglomerates.
Anyhow, Bechtel's building a new mill in there. I went over anticipating going on that job. At the same time, Wellman Parr and
Safford.
from Safford to Globe.
At Globe, you were building a mill again for the copper industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't last because you didn't stay, or
Oh,
because
the
part of
job
work
is
you were
still
on?
going. I was just unhappy with the job I was on, so
What were your particular thing you were
I
doing?
was a serviceman on a service truck on graveyard shift.
It does it affect your rate when you get switched around within your contract? For instance, you're a crane operator now
Right.
at the Morenci job.
Mhm.
Would it affect your rate tremendously, or is it pretty?
No, there's not that much.
It's more the enjoyment you're getting out of what you're doing.
Well, no, not actually. the enjoyment, but
Satisfaction?
I mean, on your rate. Well, the crane operator's got to face it when there's not any crane work going, or the cranes
Yeah.
is already filled. You know, there's only so
Yeah.
many jobs, and there's a bunch of crane
Is the
operators.
crane operator the apex of the thing?
Right.
So that's what you're after if you can get it. Generally.
Well, mostly.
Okay.
And yeah, your crane operator, he's the top dog, really. In the operators. And
Are you young to be a crane operator? Generally, as you move around, meet up?
not so much so. I think I've got a lot more experience than most of the guys my
I know
age
you
is
have-
running cranes.
Yeah, I realize you have the experience, but still in actual age, do you find the typical crane operator maybe in his 40s or 50s?
Right.
So you're unusual.
Especially
in
the
that
guys,
sense.
especially the guys that's qualified for your bigger cranes.
Yeah. What size crane are you operating at Morenci now?
140 ton.
And what are you building at Morenci? What's going on there?
Well, not much now. I'm working on a track hopper. And, we was putting up the ore storage buildings, and it's all real heavy iron and several overhead cranes that goes in. Well, I say for probably 6 months I had 220 foot of stick in the rig, 220 foot of boom, hanging all this heavy iron.
Yeah.
Now I'm back to 150 foot, which seems kind of short, really. After
How does this compare, not knowing anything about your trade, with what looks to an outsider like what's going on big high-rise construction? You know, what looks like a guy perched up there at 20 stories, you know, operating a crane lifting off. And he seems to have pretty big booms too. How does yours compare with that?
I've never run one of those building cranes.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you've got a whole lot more. I think there's probably more skill involved running with a long boom.
What you're doing right now is a longer boom, right? Than what he'd be having. They couldn't possibly put that longer boom on.
Yeah, no, that's right.
What are you doing?
I've never worked on
Is it-
high-rise, but
What is the, when you say the skill, what is it that goes into the measure of what you're saying in a long boom? What is it is it the danger? Is it the balance? What is it you're having to take account of?
well, the balance is a lot of it, because you figure you get a 140 ton crane, and this is truck mounted. It's on rubber. Of course, you've got your outriggers when you set it up, and it's set up pretty solid. But it's a mobile crane. When you begin moving it around on these unlevel terrains,
Which
sidling,
is around
uphill or
Morenci
downhill,
and all this country.
right? That's
Okay.
strictly all
trickier.
mountains, and you get 220 foot of stick. You're absolutely top heavy, just to be truthful with you. I mean, it's
Is
about all you can do to keep the tires on the ground, really.
Is it the load you have to calculate in
right?
in connection with the length of boom? Is that what
Right.
you're
So
having to watch?
you've got.
You're liable to pick up too much load.
The thing of it is, some of the columns that I stood up over there is 130 foot long and weigh as much as 17 tons. And they haul them in, they're laying down, and you have to stand it up, you understand?
Yeah.
And if you get any side pull at all on that boom, it'll come down. It'll snap like a toothpick. You've got to stay right over your load at all times, and I mean, that constitutes reaching out here 130 foot and get a hold of the head of the column, and you have to boom up with it, pick it up, and swing it all at the same time. And come and when you stand it up, it's got to be when you come off the ground with it, it can't flop or drag or anything. I mean,
All right. What are the skills? I know some things are an art. You follow me? You know, it's almost indescribable. But to the extent you can break them down, what is it you think makes for a first-rate crane operator under those conditions? What is the is it coordination, judgment? You know, how many different factors do you see that are going in?
well, I'd say coordination, judgment is a big factor, and well, there's nothing to take the place of experience. You take.
Have you ever been toppled?
Never have. I've never lost a boom yet. I may lose one Monday, but I haven't yet.
Have you been around? I mean, have you been on jobs where there's multiple crane
Oh yeah.
operations? Have you been around where somebody else is?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen several.
Is that
rigs.
part of experience, do you think, too? Also, even if it don't happen to you,
Right.
does it scare you enough to see it?
Well, it don't actually scare you.
What usually happens when a crane talks? How many different possibilities are
There's
You can
no
drop your load.
There's no describing it, because I'll tell you to start with, when you've got much boom in a rig, when it comes down, whoever's working on it, most of the time, if the guys have time, they run. But there's no predicting where it'll go. I mean, it's
Builder skill.
It seems like it happens. It seems like it takes a long time.
That, they,
But it all of
you
a
mean
sudden,
it's seconds, but what is, it's always snapping like a tooth, is that what's happening every time?
oh, they don't always snap in two. A lot of times they'll just fold up and they'll fall back on the rig, or they'll fall in front of it, or to one side or behind.
Is it danger to the crane operator?
Very definitely.
That's partly it, but it's also the fear that you're going to kill a fellow worker. I mean, you're going to drop something on other people, or is it more that
I'll
it's going
tell
to
you
fall
what.
back on you? Which way?
There's not so much of that in construction. As you take your,
The guys are not under it really, in a sense.
at times they're in a bad spot, but most of the time when that load leaves the ground, it's yours. I mean, till you get it
Yeah,
approximately
right.
where it's going to
Yeah.
go, and then they're there to.
Yeah. What do you call the guys that work with you? Like a nipper, with an engine. What are the guys who are signaling you and so forth? Who's in your part of your crew?
Well, you mostly work with all different crafts in erecting these buildings, but mostly iron workers. And the guys that you're actually working with in the air, they're the connectors. And
Connectors who are actually iron workers, huh?
yeah, the connectors they're more or less kind of a trade of their own, really.
Are they the guys that in high-rise construction are catching that hot iron and bolting and that type of thing? Is it the same type of thing?
Right. They
Connecting
don't
the
use
I-beams
rivets
and-
anymore. It's
No, yeah,
that's
but
all obsolete. But I mean,
But it's they're the successors to those kind of guys?
he's the guy you see hanging up there on the side of a column waiting for the next beam. He don't have nothing to stand on, and he's hanging on the column waiting for the next beam. The thing of it is
And he's signaling you, is that right? I mean, or how are you working in signal?
there's times when he can't signal, he's hanging on with both hands.
Yeah.
But I mean, after you run a crane and hang an iron, well, you get to where you know what he needs and he
Yeah.
knows what you're going to do. It.
Yeah.
A lot of times he'll just
Yeah.
nod his head and
Yeah,
he's
and that's
hanging
enough
on, see?
signal, yeah.
Right. He'll give you
Yeah.
up or down,
Yeah. Who are the guys you most respect in the building trade for the pure guts? Is it iron workers?
Your connectors, they're
Yeah.
they're pretty
Are they in
good.
as risky a position as anybody?
Yeah, they are. 'Cause he's the one that puts the iron up for the stairway.
You say they're not using rivets. How are they doing that now?
bolt up. Use bolts.
And what's he actually doing physically? I mean, what's he having to do with
Well,
each hand? And what's he carrying?
they usually carry 2 spud wrenches and a sleeving bar, they call it. You use a sleeving bar a lot of times if they have trouble getting a beam between 2 columns. Well, you can take that sleeving bar. It's a long bar, and you
How long?
pry it in, probably 3 foot long. And they use that for leverage, And
This
most
is
of the
still
time
while
on the
you're
iron-
holding it, huh?
right, you drop a beam in. A lot of times it may have 10 bolt holes in each end. Well, the connectors usually he just put 2 bolts in his end, and the other guy, he's got a partner that works with him all the time, and he'll put
They're
in
always working buddies.
in teams, yeah. And most of your iron workers, after they work with the operators, some of the guys has got better skills for running a crane, say like pouring concrete or hanging iron or handling heavy loads. I mean, there's different phases of crane work, see.
How many different, just generalized, 10 different kinds of skills inside a crane operator?
10 or more, probably.
What about, how do you feel the first day? You come on and run the job the first day. You're likely to see some connectors that you know from other jobs.
Yeah,
I mean, is it after a while, if you stay in the same region?
right. Most of your
Geographically.
connectors, after an operator gets known, if he's fairly decent crane operator, hanging iron or so forth, they call him a hook man. They say he's a good hook man.
A hook man is a compliment to you.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's as
And
far as
they-
the connector's concerned.
Right. If the connector says, if he tells his other iron worker buddies, he says, hey, this guy's a good hook man, Well, they know they can trust you then.
Yeah.
See,
But a green guy's
a lot of
liable to
times
upset
they
them.
ride a man cage up on the iron, and they're, you know, they depend on you a lot. You hoist them up and down with a crane.
Yeah.
And you take a guy hanging on the side of a building like that, all you got to do is bump him on the shin bone with one of those beams that weighs 2,000 or 3,000 pounds, and it'll break his leg, you know.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a terrible responsibility in that sense, isn't it?
Right. In a lot of ways it is.
Have you ever had guys, fellow workers, that have hurt guys or killed guys? I mean, have you seen them afterwards? I mean, in the bars and all. I mean, you had this in your own experience?
Well,
You know, like on bridge jobs, you nearly always lose somebody, you know, or something.
yeah, I've worked on jobs where, you know, things had happened, somebody got killed or so forth.
It's upsetting, though.
Yeah, it is.
Is it like a mine? I mean, do you shut down when that happens? I mean, like
Right.
in a mine, nobody works another goddamn minute if a guy gets
If
killed.
an iron worker falls,
Yeah.
whether it kills him or not, they go to the house.
All iron workers
Right,
stop
they
for
don't-
the day. But
they
do the
go-
other trades continue, or does that stop them?
No, most of the time they go into.
They go-
The operator is connected to the iron workers. He always is.
Yeah, right.
It's nothing.
It don't matter. It's just the idea of the falls enough.
Right.
Everybody has to.
Yeah,
Now, what do the guys generally do? You remember you weren't just joking. I mean, it's a realistic thing. Like with mining, guys drink heavily in this business, right?
most of the iron workers do.
Yeah, and so it's like there's usually good bars or sociable places near around these jobs, right? Well, they build up fast. It's in nowhere to live, I guess, huh?
Yeah, there's always something going in that line, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
What were you saying, like about concrete? Have you done as much of that, or?
oh yeah, I poured a lot of concrete.
And shafts is still another thing, isn't it?
Right, it's
I mean, that's
completely
considered
different.
a different thing.
Yeah, I would
What
say.
are the nicknames for shaft guys? Like there's a.
Yeah, all of those shaft miners, they call them tramp miners.
If you get good at it, that's a compliment too.
Well,
Or are they just
that
referring
don't
to
include the hoistmen.
That don't include. Okay. They're
A
mean.
lot
to
of the
guys.
miners, if they trust their hoistman and they like him, they'll tell everybody he's a good hoistman.
Yeah.
But
You were telling at Silver City that it's where you got over some of your temper, you think?
yeah, I think maybe yes.
You want to tell about that? You had an ordinary young guy's temper, you think, up till then?
Well,
Might
probably
still
ordinary.
ordinary, little extraordinary. You
Yeah.
know.
That,
You inherited an
thing of
extraordinary
it is-
capability as well as a temper.
the thing of it is, a lot of times those guys, you know, you take some, well, say, you take some railroad iron down, for instance. Well, you take them down, and they've got a tugger or a slusher that they use to tail it in. They pull it in down in the bottom while you let it down. Well, it seemed like a lot of the times they'd give you 900 extra bales. They'd bring you up an inch, and then back down 3 inches, and then up 4 inches, and
Signals driving you crazy.
right, and, you know, just up and down,
Yeah,
up and
right.
down, and well, you think, well, man, I wonder what he's doing.
You mind describing the bells? I've heard them at different times. But give me some examples of what some of the signal bells are.
You mean-
Nicknames and, you know, and what particular common signals are in shaft work.
Well, most of the time in a shaft they use one bell as a stop bell, and 2 bells is down, and 3-1 is up. It's a combination of bells. 3-2 is down for the man aboard, and then for a collar bell, from the bottom of the shaft to the collar, they use a 1-2-3-1. A 1-2 is your first level in your bells. And then your 3-1 is your command for up. So your 3-2 is command for down. In other words, if a man's in the bottom of the shaft and he wants to go to the collar, well, your collar is a 1-2 bell. And if you just get a 1-2, well, you don't never move the hoist unless you get the command bell with it to 3-1 that there's a man aboard. And even if they send up an empty skip, unless they give you a release bell is a 2-1-2. They'll give you the release bell. And then he can give you the 1-2. Well, it's an empty skip, and you bring it to the collar. You can do whatever you want to with it on the release. And on your stations, they've got bells up to 39 levels going down.
Yeah.
The most I ever worked with was 7 levels.
Was this at Silver City?
Right.
That was where I began.
Yeah,
because you were saying that you sort of,
well,
up till then, felt that you
see,
had a
here's the
pretty
deal.
good temper, and you learned to control it there. What were they doing? What types of things were they?
Well, I had men working on 5 different levels
Yeah.
at the same time, see.
You were about still only maybe 25 years old at that time or something?
Probably.
Okay.
At one time, I was the youngest horseman in the state of New Mexico.
Right.
21, I think.
21 years old. Okay.
But the thing of it is, your 1-2 bell is your collar bell. And the 1-3 is your first level. 1-4 is your second level. 1-5 is your third level.
Yeah.
And then you go to 2-1 for your fourth level. 2-2 is your fifth. 2-3 is the sixth. And then you had a 2-4 for the seventh level. Well, these guys don't realize. So you get guys working on 5 different levels at one time. Well, they're drilling on one level. They're ready to shoot on another one. They need a mucking machine in this other level. And they got to take a mucker out of this other level. See, it's and the thing of it is, say a guy gets on at the collar.
And tell, from your point of view as a horseman engineer, what all this means up on top. I mean, in terms of meeting their demands, what are you having to do? Like, you're coming from, you got to know exactly at what feet you are.
Well, here's the
going.
thing of it is,
right?
well, you've got indicators that tell you where you are all times.
Yeah.
A hoist, to the average guy, it looks like it's really complicated. You know, after you get used to it, it's not so much. I know the first one I ever seen scared me to death. I thought, this guy's going crazy. You know, he's just letting them fall.
The bells sound complicated, but they're like, doctors writing.
Right. It's just like somebody saying, hey, take me to the collar, or I want to go to the bottom. It's just like, it's a language.
Yeah.
And you're there by yourself. Nobody talks to you.
Right.
Thing of it is, a guy will get on at the collar, say, for instance, and he wants to go to the 7th level. All right, he'll give you a 2-4-3-2. And at the same time he's ringing his 2-4-3-2, some guy up here on the 600-foot level is calling for the cage. Well, he rings you a 1-5 on a separate bell system. So you're getting 2-4-3-2 here and 1-5 over here. Well, you're starting down with this guy. You got to run the hoist, and then you got to answer back these call bells. They've got a light system. You flash them back that you've got his signal, and he won't call you again. Well, when you flash back that you're going to the 600 level, when you flash this 1-5, some guy down here on the 800-foot level sees it, so he decides, well, this guy's coming down to the 1-5, he's going to stop there, so I'll stop him here too. And so he'll give you another bell. See, he may give you a 2-2. Well, you flash him back that you got his. And then, see, you might get 4 call bells off of these 7 levels. At the same time, you're taking this one guy down. And if you happen to run by one of those stations, if you forget, well, it'll give you a stop bell. See. And actually, you're supposed to take your call bells as they come in. Especially if you've got a double drum hoist, you can stop one side and clutch it out and go ahead with the other one, and so forth. With on single drum hoist, you take them just as they come in, unless it's an emergency.
What were you working in Silver City?
Well, I run both.
At the beginning, was it single?
On the number 3 shaft, I run a double drum. On the number 2 shaft, it's single. The thing of it is, you're supposed to take these bells as they come in. All right. These guys down there, they don't know who rang first and who rang last.
Yeah.
And
you see, he's got the priority, and they're not. First of all, they're not hoisting engineers. That ain't their business. They just want them to get something.
Most of these guys, they come out there.
Yeah, it's too complicated.
He hires out, and he don't know the bells.
Yeah.
And it takes him. Maybe it takes him 2 weeks to get to where he can ring the bell and get to his level, and he can get off and he can release the cage.
Barely can learn how to get to where he wants to go.
Right. A lot of times he'll get off and walk off and leave the cage without releasing it. And boy,
shut down the whole operation.
Right. You can't leave a level. No way.
without a release. No.
Because if you move that
Probably kill
skip,
somebody.
that man's liable to
Yeah.
be stepping on it just when you move, see?
right.
And you can flash them and flash them and flash them. And
Yeah.
I used to get mad at them to turn their lights off. See, I had all the switches. I just turn all the lights off underground. And I'd raise hell with them.
Yeah.
Finally, they'd
This is
figure out
what you meant by saying, Betty, was probably the biggest education you got about temper at that
Right,
point in your
I
life.
finally figured out that these guys, you know, I got to thinking, well, looks like they'd know better, you know, but
Yeah.
they just make common, ordinary human mistakes. The only thing I had 7 levels to put up with, where if you're just working one level, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
You don't never notice
Yeah.
it. A guy forgets to release the cage, you
Had do all
flash the
nothing like
lights.
that ever bugged you before.
No, see, we had
Yeah.
2 levels.
Yeah.
Finally, I figured
Silver
out,
City, your temper must have been to the breaking point a few times before you got control of it.
if I could have got a hold of them, it'd have been at their breaking point.
Did you get in any fights over there?
No, not on the job.
That you
Yeah, I
wanted to
did.
talk
I got
about?
in one
Yeah, you
fight
got
on the
one
job.
fight in the job.
Where? At Silver City? How did
Yeah.
that happen?
And it was actually a brother operator.
Yeah.
They
What
give him a
happened?
little bossing job over the miners. I don't remember.
Was it on, he was developing?
Yeah.
And that was
And
why.
they give him a little walking job.
Yeah.
He really got important, this guy did.
Yeah.
And he put a miner on the loader one night to knock down the muck pile. Oh, better skip me, Jack. But he put a loader on the a miner on the loader. Well, I went and held him, pulled him off. I went and asked the miner. I said, "What are you doing around that loader?" And he said, "Well," he said, "Jim told me to run it." And I said, "You go back in the hotel, Jim." I said, "For him, send that operator up here." And so he went down, and Jim come up. He told me, he said, "Well," he said, "I had to have him on there. It was an emergency situation. We was muck bound on top. We couldn't hoist any more muck till they did clean up the muck pile. But he had an operator down there trying to get him to do miner's work, and he put a miner doing the operator's work, which actually it's not costing anybody anything because both men still on the job.
Yeah.
But right's right, and this guy's a brother member, see.
Yeah.
And since he got this mine foreman job, well, he decided he was going to do it his way. Well, I was about half acting steward on that job, so I had him pull the
At
miner
Silver
off.
City, you still
Right.
have. Okay.
And he come in the hoist house. Me and him got in an argument over it. And one word kind of led to another, and he went on. I didn't think any more about it. Well, he went and told this shaft superintendent he was over all 3 sites, see, over all 3 shafts. Well, he made the comment he'd come over and straighten that horseman out. He said he's been up here too long anyway. I'd been there almost 3 years in. He said he's been here too long. I'll go straighten him out. If he don't like it, I'll just run him off. See?
Super.
Yeah. And this guy was about half. I don't know. He's kind of a ring ding. And I think it's his first superintendent job. Anyway, he's trying to impress people too. But he come over and he didn't say anything to me when he come over, but he went back over to the other site, see, you know, to the other shaft, and he told all them guys that he really tore me up, really straightened me out. Well, I didn't know anything about it, and I come to work the next afternoon on swing shift for this Jim Bierman. He come in and started shooting off his mouth. I told him to get out of the hoist house. Nobody's supposed to be in there but me when I was hoisting.
That was the other operator.
Right, this guy's it.
Had gone to the suit.
Right, it's the first time. And I told him to get out of the hoist house. Yeah. I don't know, he said something else. And he called me a name. Well, I just knocked him out of the hoist house, you know. And, well, he went to get my money. He went and got this superintendent again. He's going to get me run off. Well, that superintendent come back over there. Well, he come back in that second time. Some of these miners had told me what he had said, you know, about how he's going to straighten me out. As soon as I seen him drive up, well, I just dogged the hoist off, and I met him out of his car. And, boy, he had a completely different story, you know. He told me, he said, I knew you was having trouble over here, Ronnie. He said, I'm going to straighten that Jim out. He said, I'm going to put him on straight graveyard shift. I said, you better put him somewhere. I said, because he ain't going to make it on my shift. So he put him on graveyard. And
Turned it around completely.
Yeah, he turned it around completely. I think, you know,
That's
had
what
he
you
had
managed
growled-
an inexperienced super.
if he'd have growled and I'd have backed off, well, he'd have rode me from then on, you know.
Or he might even, run me off.
So you've been able to survive on jobs that way, standing up for your rights, you think?
Right. I'll tell you what, in construction, you get exactly as much respect as you demand. That's all.
Have you ever had to get into it otherwise, level than anybody else?
No, not on the job.
Pink has.
Yeah. How about off the job? Let's talk about that. While we're resting.
It's been a long time.
Long time. That was back in your youth, under 25?
He learns faster than Pinky.
Really?
Pinky still gets into a row every once in a while.
Yeah. Have you ever been in the, Pinky described some of those operators. I was telling him about some miners meetings, how wild they get. This fellow at Blonsky got killed, murdered in the BMW fight. I said, he was so tough. He was a good guy, Johnny Lewis, man. But I've seen him call a meeting, the order with the butt end of the damn, anything that, he had to keep order, Damn you son of a bitch, parliamentary, you sit down. Guys come in drunk to meetings.
Right.
I think he was saying, by God,
That's
you ought to
something
see the disorder in some of the operating engineers.
I hate to see guys come in drinking like that. Especially if you've got some business you want to tend to,
Because you guys have traveled a good distance sometimes to a meeting, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
And
Most
have
of
you
the
seen
time.
some pretty rowdy ones, or the way Pinky describes them?
Yeah.
Where have they been, and what kind of experience?
Mostly Albuquerque at a general membership meeting,
There'll be how many people there?
Maybe 600 to 1,800.
Pretty hard to
A lot of
keep
people,
mortal.
yeah. Oh, not. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you go down expecting a lot of trouble or action or something, and then it'll all come out pretty quiet, come off real smooth. And the next time you go down, well, you figure, it's just going to be a short meeting. We'll go down and get everything over, and then you have 7 or 8 fights,
Will the fights be debates, or will they actually break up
No,
into
fist
pretty big
fights.
fist fights? Huh? Yeah. Some
You
guys carry it out
call
pretty
them
well, huh?
debates if you like.
Yeah, but they're using their fists pretty well. It starts in as what kind of issues? It may start over almost anything, seniority.
Oh, well. No, a lot of times some guy will have the floor. He'll want to bring up something that's happened 5 or 6 years ago, and that's usually what starts it.
Yeah. Another guy.
Paw.
If you've been to those meetings, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Bringing up old issues, sore spots.
And the only way to keep order is knock him down. Huh?
Well, no,
Have you seen Pinky get into it at the meeting yourself?
not really. The only thing I ever seen him do is to try to break up a fight. I've never seen him actually have a fight in a meeting. No, he's
He tries to keep
course,
order.
he was an officer in the local,
Yeah.
for a long time, and he knows what's right and what's wrong and how it should be. And I've seen him a lot of times get up and help settle stuff down by explaining things to the guys.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the guys, they respect him and they'll listen to him,
Mm-hmm.
or they won't believe anybody else. A lot of times they'll believe him. I've never seen him actually get into it, just try to break it up mostly.
Mm-hmm. And the Smorency job's been pretty peaceful when you're on there.
Right.
And you're building what? Is this these tanks you were telling me about now that you're on, or what?
Oh, that's
It's a precipitate.
it's a new leaching process to leach out their tailings.
Yeah.
And they claim they'll get practically all the copper out of that tailings. What little percentage they've been losing.
Started out as something they thought was an expense to them, and it's turned
Right,
out to
it
make
all
money
hold.
for them.
At Aho, they told me, said, the Phillips Dodge and all the copper companies felt like people was picking on them because of the pollution control.
Ecology and pollution.
And this one guy was telling me when he was building the acid plant, he said, this acid plant, he said, eventually it'll pay for itself. He said, but it'll never be profitable to operate it. And I thought, how terrible, that everything you touch don't turn to gold.
Yeah.
But now, to start with, they said they didn't have any market for their acid.
Huh.
But now they can use every bit of it themselves to leach out their tailings.
and they turn around, they're able to take a waste product like tailings and pull copper out of that. At what, 60 cents a pound?
Yeah.
It's higher than that now, I guess.
Yeah, millions of pounds.
No telling how much.
So they'll actually end up making money on something that they thought was
We sold some copper for 60 cents a pound now, or
that's probably just
a
the
hotel down there.
I don't know.
Scrap price on it.
I suppose that excess acid and stuff will finally just dilute itself away to nothing too. I don't think they're going to have a big problem with it.
Then you were talking about the turquoise. That was interesting. When you bumped into it enough around Morenci and off.
What stuff I've actually seen, I don't know if it's turquoise or not. I think some of it is. It looks like it is. A lot of
you
crystal.
said the company is so aware of its value now that it's gone up to several $100s a pound that it's worth more than gold. So they're
yeah, they
what
have
were you telling us that if a man
mine.
bends down right in the open pit mine?
If they catch anybody on the construction job picking up rocks or looking at them or anything, they'll fire him on our job.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's many turquoise over where we are. Not
But
down
they're
in the lower
that
area.
aware of the
Right.
business.
And then in
How
the
about
pit,
in production down in the pit?
in the pits, they
Actual
tell me
miners, yeah.
that if they catch a man picking up a piece of turquoise, I guess they just give him 10 days off to start with. They rip him out pretty heavy over.
That could work out a lot of different ways, couldn't it? Just the foreman, I guess, is the one that can give them the discipline. So you could,
Well, there's a lot of it gets out up there, I guess. I don't know how they get it out.
yeah. Man reaches over and picks some of it up, and he says, 10 days off, I'll take that, huh?
He's got to have the evidence.
Yeah, he's got to keep the evidence. Ain't necessary to turn it in, I guess. Well, have
Another beer,
you...
Ronnie?
No, I'm gonna have to go, Jack.
When you planning on leaving?
About 10. Dottie's aunt and uncle's going back real early in the morning. They're gonna leave about 4 o'clock. I guess we'll get up and have
Wish you
coffee.
guys got to do it.
Yeah.
Would have been nice instead of just delivering a year-old down.
Win a few and lose a few.
I sent.
You know, I haven't been deer hunting since I've been to Arizona.
Yeah.
It's a complicated over there, Jack. You have to put in for a permit, just like you do here for an elk.
I'll be on.
And they have drawings, and you can put down I think 2 different choices for the areas you want, but they're liable to give you a permit for an area
Priorities.
way up north or something, you know.
Maybe.
Actually, I don't think there's that many deer in Arizona. No, I don't believe there's any in New Mexico now.
Oh, do you? What do you know?
I'll just be sure it's going.
Hey, Richard.
This is a recording in Carlsbad, New Mexico on November 25, 1973 in the home of D.Z. Oliver, who has spent 25 years in the PCA, Potash Company of America, potash mines, and they lie how many miles east of Carlsbad?
About 25. I'd say.
25 miles?
About 20.
Okay, and with D.Z. Oliver, who just answered that question, is Casimir Alexander, who's worked how long?
25 years.
Boy, a bunch of 25-year veterans
years.
here, huh?
You have 2 25-year veterans.
Okay. I believe, Al, that your background was come out here to Carlsbad in the military service. Was that true, as I reckon?
Yes, I was stationed out here during the war, Mike. And
At the air base here
At
in
the air base.
Carlsbad. And you married here
Met my
and
wife.
started...
finished the war, came back and married him. Been here ever since.
Oh, I see. You didn't marry. You came back and married.
Back,
Okay.
right.
Okay. You thought it over back in Rhode Island.
thought
I
it
think
over.
is where you were from, right? Providence, was it? Because I remember.
Pawtucket.
Pawtucket. I remember.
Pawtucket, all right.
Excuse me. Yeah, Pawtucket. Okay. And you always had a unique background that I always found very unusual in the fact that while we had a big Spanish-speaking population here, you were Portuguese-speaking.
Yes.
Was that right?
Yep.
And Pawtucket was one of the great centers of Portuguese American
American people.
Well, say something in Portuguese, Al.
Yeah, how about greeting us in Portuguese, sir? If you haven't lost it all.
Detective Castillo.
What'd you just say?
What is it you want
You
me to
said
say?
no. What did you
Very
want
good.
to say?
Okay, with us, too, we'll get back and identify these guys further in work and trade union terms, is Don Boyd, who is the only, in Israeli terms, Sabra. Isn't that what they call him? Almost nobody, the native born, okay?
Native born.
You were a native
No,
born?
I wasn't born in New Mexico.
Oh, you weren't? Well, correct me. But no.
Born in California.
California.
Uh-oh.
But then you spent
Then
your
I-
youth here, right? You came here?
Lived in California a year.
1 year, okay.
Then I moved
That was an
to-
accident of fate. And you went to school, grade school and everything? Where were you?
Grade school in Wheat to the 7th grade. And then from the 7th to the 12th here in Carlsbad. Finished when I got back from the service.
Mhm.
In 1947 graduated.
Mhm.
Went to work at PCA, been there 21 years.
21 years. So you went to work out there in 52, right?
In 52.
Okay. So we got, everyone is from Potash Company of America, which is now a division of what big conglomerate?
Deal basics.
Ideal Basic, okay. It used to be a Denver-based regional firm, wasn't it? But it
Still is.
still is. The subsidiary.
The subsidiary, Potash Company of America is
Yeah.
Denver-based.
And it's become very big in Canadian potash mining now.
Correct.
And just so we identify the thing, and you all correct me, the Carlsbad, New Mexico was, until recent years, the world center of potash production,
Correct.
which is a major ingredient of fertilizer in the chemical industry. And I want to get some work histories just so we identify it and some backgrounds. When you first went to work, Jack, what was your first job underground?
Underground?
Well, you began on the surface for a
Yeah, I
few
began
months
on
in the bull gang,
Yeah,
okay,
on the bull gang.
which is like a service labor
Yeah,
group?
service labor
Almost.
crew. Did various types of things of unloading materials, cement. And
When you went underground within a few months, what was your first job then?
I was a driller.
A driller.
A drill, conventional mining.
Yeah, so that
And,
PCA mines were fairly, they might have owned a continuous miner or two, but most mining was conventional mining.
Yes.
Drilling,
Drilling,
blasting,
cutting,
undercutting,
blasting.
right? And they had typical coal type, I assume, equipment, right?
Yeah, it was all coal
How
mining
about
equipment.
you, Al, in terms of,
I went to work on the labor crew, bull gang, then went into the mine and became a nipper first and a driller. And from there to a shuttle car, pottery, did everything in the mine.
okay. Now, you sound like you were more on the transportation end, and just to get the thing, because a nipper is called other things, as you know, in other parts of the country. Why don't you identify it in the transportation system?
A nipper is one who helps the motorman take the raw product out of the face to a dumping point. And,
Okay, the motorman is in charge of the engine and
of the engine crew.
Okay, and the nipper is you're doing the switching?
Doing the switching,
Okay.
coupling the cars.
Yeah. And in the promotional scheme, you can bid on the motorman job?
From there.
Okay.
From the nipper's position.
Okay. Because as you know, in other parts of the country, the word nipper is, it's a
Snapper,
nickname.
right. I
A
think it's a
snapper is
snapper.
called in the
Snapper.
South. And
I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
right, you're right. They have a lot of, right. And it's different in copper, even in the West,
Right.
They're nicknames
I
for
forget what
jobs.
they
You
call it.
remember with Arrington and the building trades, they have all nicknames,
Oh,
If
yeah.
a guy's a good crane operator, he's a hook man. He can put it where they need it.
He's a good
If he isn't, they don't call him a hook man. See? So you were a good nipper, I hope.
I was.
Let me get trade union backgrounds while we're here, in addition to work backgrounds, and then even if you're in a flux and change, you both were active in the union movement, and you presently, Jack, you hold what office?
Financial secretary.
Of local,
Local 177.
of the,
United Steelworkers of America.
all right, and the history, is it correct to say, was that the potash mining basin began and was organized by the mine mill and smelter workers?
Local 415.
415 was a joint local for all operations,
Amalgamated.
an amalgamated local in the basin. In subsequent years, with the chopping out of the craft units, which were how many? Electricians? How many different units were chopped out?
Well, there were the IBEW, the
Yeah.
IEM, a number of operating engineers, mine mill, mainly with the production workers.
Yeah. And then subsequently you went to stone workers, was that fair?
Yeah,
Although
stone
some
workers.
mines remained District 50 from their original organization, right? United Mine Workers. And then Allied, what was the correct name of
That's
the
Stone Allied Products Workers.
And then when they went into steel, you all ended up back in
Steel workers.
steel, which is where the copper miners ended up by a different
Yeah.
route anyway, okay? So you've tended to be where anyway all the miners are in the west, inside the steel workers.
Steelworkers raided us all in the early days, and we all finally
Yeah,
ended up in
but the same thing was happening in copper
Yeah,
in a different
copper,
way,
yeah.
fighting off raiding, but ended up by amalgamation inside of steel. Except that here, well, no, it was true all over the copper mines
over.
too, that you were carved out by crafts in
Right.
addition, okay? So you are unlike the United Mine Workers, which is a single union at the mines. Now, in addition to you holding that office, you, Al, I think, have held office until recently as what, president of that
Well, I was
same?
president up till September the 1st this
Okay,
year.
but you also have held a number of other offices, if you don't mind describing them.
Well, I initially started out being a shop steward, and then a shift steward, then became a trustee, and I've held practically every...
But you hold state, what are you in the New Mexico Federation of Labor?
I was vice president, executive vice president of the State Federation, State Air Force.
Yeah, in past years, or you
Past
still?
years, and I'm presently, well, I was up till this year. Till
A vice president.
A vice president.
Okay. And then have you held offices in COPE or other organizations?
I've held
Mind describing some of them?
Hope,
What, statewide?
statewide, by the fact that I was the executive vice president, generally led registration drives and get out the vote drives and distributed
Okay.
campaign.
And then you've run for public office, I
And,
believe, and I don't know if you've held public office.
I have not held public
Okay.
office, but I have been county chairman of the Democratic
Oh, you-
Party.
You were until recently, or
Till
still are?
recently,
Okay,
till recently.
okay.
I gave that up.
okay,
That's two.
right. Well, then, as we continue, why don't we go around and just describe what you presently do, your present occupations. You're no longer underground. I believe, Jack, you had an accident underground, is that right? Or was it on the
that's
surface?
on the
Okay.
surface.
You bid onto the surface from underground?
No, we didn't. We got bumped out in 1958 when there was a cutback.
Okay.
They'd,
Seniority bumped you out.
They started
To the surface.
producing in Canada, and they had a big cutback of about 70 or 80 people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they presumed that it was going to go great guns in Canada, and they had a cave-in or washout or something. Anyhow, their plans fouled up. Meantime, we were bumped out on top of about, I don't know, 30 or 40 of us from that out.
58.
In 58, and Al and I, we elected to go to the loading dock
And you work as a loading dock doing what?
as an operator.
And your job consists generally of what as an
I was
operator?
loading potash into box cars and hopper cars for shipment
Okay.
to different points.
I know there's
Throughout
various
the world.
grades that we can discuss, but we probably can have Don discuss
No.
since he tests on some of it.
You know, we have 5 or 6 different
Okay.
grades, types of potash.
How about you, Al? Are you on
I do essentially the same thing, Mike.
on a different shift, or are there
On a
several
different shift.
operators?
Yeah, each shift has several operators. I'm one on my shift, Jack's one on his. And essentially we do the trafficking job for moving potash from as a finished product to a customer.
Okay. Don, have you worked in the same department since you started in '52?
No, I started in the control lab, which is shift work. It was at that time. They have did away with the control lab work now. I went from control to research for 3 years, and then into the car sampling lab, which ran only daily products and the car samples, which was all the products that were shipped out.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm presently in the analytical lab.
The what lab?
Analytical.
Analytical lab.
We work, we run all types of samples in there. Water samples,
Mm-hmm.
the chemical grade and soluble, which is the two highest grades products they produce. They have standard, coarse, and granular. And
Most potash goes for fertilizer, huh? And
Yes.
what are the various, as you describe those grades, what are the names of the things that go into fertilizer?
the standard, coarse, and granular. The and also the sulfate, which is made in Dumas, which is used in the tobacco industry mainly. Then we have the chemical, which goes into medicines. Of course, there's lots of uses for it, but it is chemical grade goes into. It's a pure white product.
Also into foods, certain
And the
types of
foods, chemical, yeah. And in there we run total analysis on chemical and soluble, which is lead, copper, mag, calcium, and such things as that.
Very good. And you've been in analytical how many years now?
I've been in there 3 years.
You also, I believe, are the only one of the group here that has been to Canada.
Yes.
How long did you spend up in the Canadian mine development?
I was up there 5.5 months.
Was that at a stage when production had started?
It was
after
when we was
development?
training the people that had been hired there to train them to operate the lab and the refinery. And then they had trouble with the shaft, so we came back till they got it in operation again.
Then you returned?
And then I never did go back.
Okay. Well, these very isolated operations, they're in Saskatchewan, or where are they?
They're in Saskatoon,
Saskatoon.
which is in Saskatchewan.
Are they out in the country pretty
They're-
far from anything?
It's 17 miles from town.
From Saskatoon.
And it's the same direction from there as it is in Carlsbad.
It's east, straight east.
Straight east.
Except, how would you describe the weather conditions? Make it a little different?
Well, when I was there, it was sometimes 40 below. I was there in the winter.
Okay.
And it was a pretty white winter that winter. But you, on top, before you go down, it may be 40 below. When you get down 3,000 feet, it's 90 degrees. There's that much change.
Above.
No, below, it's 90 degrees.
90
yeah,
above.
above. Sure, right.
But it's 40
You
below.
leave the
when
weather,
you're
the normal weather at 40 degrees below, but at 3,000, these are very deep mines.
Yeah,
Let's discuss
3,200.
the Carlsbad mines. They're about 25 miles east of Carlsbad, and they're how deep?
1,000 feet.
About
1,000 feet. That's pretty uniform for most of the
Most
other
of them.
operators, Duval
They have
or
different levels.
Southwest.
Maybe they'll have a 700 or
Yeah.
800 level at some of the mines.
But, so these are very deep mines, and that accounts for the temperature, really, essentially, doesn't it?
Of course, the average is about 10 below in the winter up there. 40 is one of the
Yeah.
bad days, but
Right.
about 10 below is.
And they dress differently, and
Yes, they-
do they commute to Saskatoon, or do they have a town around? Are they building a town?
No, Saskatoon is the main town. There's no small ones close. It's just rolling hills. They use all their land for raising wheat. And there's
When the sun comes out, things will grow in the summer, there, won't they?
Oh, yes,
I mean,
there's
they
lots
get a good growth.
lots of moisture.
And of course, you got 6 months of daylight up there.
Right. Right, that's true.
6 months of daylight, 6 months of darkness.
In the summertime, you can't go to a drive-in movie till about 9 o'clock at night,
Right.
or 10, for it to be dark enough to show an
Yeah,
outside movie.
that's a different lifestyle.
I remember when we went to Seattle, it was It was daylight, 9, 10 o'clock out there.
Right.
Go to bed in the daytime.
Let
wake up
me
in the daytime.
let me back up to when you guys went in these mines in 1948, and give me your analysis of the work crew in background, ethnic terms. In other words, you obviously, from what we've jokingly said here about Don, you were not dealing with New Mexico natives. In other words, they might have been only 1% of the work crew, right?
Right.
So who were these workers? Where had they come from, most of them?
Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas.
Was Texas actually, it's in reverse order. The biggest group
Right.
may have been Texans,
Right.
and then Arkies and
Oh, no.
Okies.
Well,
and that-
actually, the core of the workforce,
Yeah.
core of the workforce is made up of Finlanders.
the oldest
Oldest-
employees at
oldest
PCA.
employees, yeah.
So they brought in experienced miners, imported them.
Originally.
Were they
Imported them from
Finlanders
Denver,
from Minnesota? Where'd they get them from?
Minnesota.
The iron mines?
Iron mines.
Okay.
Out of the copper mines, out of Denver, Leadville.
Okay. And then
out of Arizona.
Finlanders do stick,
Uh,
they bring their own kin, so they brought other
They
Finlanders in.
brought
Is that
others
right?
with them, so that the core, the main core of work is originated at that
But that
point.
preceded your arrival, like in the
That
30s, they had
right,
brought
in the
in a
30s.
big group of Finlanders, right?
Right, and of course,
By the time you got here, weren't they outnumbered by
they were
the
outnumbered completely.
cowboys? I mean,
Right. Because at that time we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 employees in the mine.
Yeah.
600.
Where we
you had
were,
600 in the mine,
right, where today we have probably 110, 115
in the mine.
in the mine, and
Yeah.
when producing the same
Right.
amount of
Right,
more.
that's what
More,
automation
yeah.
has done,
More,
yeah,
more
right,
product.
more, sure.
More product.
Well, let me just question you there, is it the mill or the refinery that used to have like 30 men working in it? And
Yeah.
today is so automated that how many men?
3.
Three can handle the whole refinery?
In the mill. No, he's
Yeah,
talking about
in
the
a
mill.
shift, yeah, in the
talking
mill,
about
this
in
would
the
be the
mill.
mill rather than a refinery, okay?
But actually, the refinery would carry about 100 men an hour when we originated.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
and what is it
today-
today?
All 3 shifts.
Yeah, today they probably run somewhere between 45 and 60 men.
Yeah,
Well, now just
but in the
got,
mine, the automation has had its fastest impact.
Yeah, the automation set in first in the mine, and then because of the ability to produce so much. With
Continuous
fewer
miners
men,
were the key to that,
right,
weren't they?
continuous
Okay.
miners were the key, and some changes had to be made on the surface, and then
What's the height of the potash seam at the face, for the most part?
the average,
Yeah.
average I'd say would be about 4.5 feet.
And what is its range? What is it
It'll
like
range
this
from
one?
48 inches to, I've seen it as
6,
high
7
as
feet.
7 feet.
You've seen 7 feet.
Yeah.
As a driller, I mean,
As a driller.
you'd be
Yeah, as a
facing it
driller, yeah.
constantly, okay? Now, I assume they use joy loaders, shuttle car, I mean, they're used to pretty much coal equipment, huh? Low built, or they have to assume they are in 48-inch seams so they don't try to work with equipment for a 7-foot seam.
this
Right.
was true up until about 1955.
Around 1955. Then when the continuous miners came in, the heads were such that they could be made at a given height, 48 inches high, 64 inches high, 72 inches high,
They
Now
could
that-
mount whatever they
whatever head they wanted
had
on
they
the machine.
want. They had
This-
variable heads.
Variable heads on it.
This is what we called a PCA miner.
Now, the
Not-
PCA miner
It's
was
totally
the only
different.
company here, PCA, that developed a
developed
non-joy continuous miner, right?
Right.
They didn't buy the joy one. Well, they used it, but they didn't necessarily
their
use
own
it
baby.
exclusively. No?
Not exclusively. The original continuous miner was a Joy continuous miner,
Yeah.
or Goodman, I
Yeah.
forget which.
Yeah,
But out of the functioning of that machine
yeah.
came the ideas that became exclusive to machines made by PCA for use in
Yeah.
potash.
And is it because potash is even softer than soft coal that they were able to do this, or was it
No, it's
actually ingenious?
harder.
No,
It's harder than soft coal,
it's harder than salt.
but not as hard as anthracite.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never
just
worked
a
in
little
anthracite,
harder than,
so.
and of course, let's just get it clear, there's no danger here of gas or explosions the way there is in
Correct.
coal at all, right?
That's
The only thing you're running into is salt, layers of salt or mud falls.
mud falls. Right.
Mud falls and salt
Right.
falls are about the biggest thing that lie
Biggest-
above the potash
above
seam
the
in the roof.
potash.
Huh?
Right.
And that
Okay.
can come down.
And how about salt in terms of what you do in the, like, is this a problem? Is it a constant production problem, the mix with salt, or?
Well, the daily ores is run each day to see what the grade is. Average, they say, for a good production would be about 19%.
What?
Of course, they look for better.
19% what?
That's potash.
Potash, out of what's brought out. Okay.
Out of what's brought out. And anything lower than that, I mean, it's...
Is most of the remainder salt mixed with
Well,
a
it's
little bit
clay
of
and
mud or
salt.
clay?
Is the main part that's left from that.
How about as you guys worked at the face? What were the conditions? In other words, what was either remarkable or interesting or that you remember about dealing with it? First of all, does it move along or does it drift down in any noticeable way and then back up?
I'd say some of it was like the waves on the ocean, up and down.
This all was an ocean, is that right?
Yeah, it was.
Geologically,
yeah,
this
millions
was all
of
an
years
ocean.
ago. Yeah.
Do you run into fossils that indicate that to you, or are there no fossils in what you're running into?
No fossils.
No fossils.
that I know
Nothing
of.
like you find sometimes in the coal or the slate above the coal that would indicate
You run into a dinosaur park every once in a while.
what, like a dinosaur? You kidding?
That's what we call them.
What do you think?
There's pockets of gas. There
Oh,
are
yeah.
pockets of gas, and they'll
But
talk
they're
about
natural
stinking.
gas? Is that the any?
We don't know exactly what it is.
You
but
drill
it
in and you
stinks
hit, like
hell.
you'd be drilling.
Yeah,
and
you hit it,
Yeah, and it's a terrible
all
stink, yeah.
blow out on you.
And that's
hadn't
the
heard
joke?
of that.
Yeah.
That's a new one, huh?
I hadn't heard of
Dinosaur.
We call them dinosaur farts.
Okay, very good, okay. That's a good nickname.
Yeah.
What, the waves, it sounds to me like that would affect the transportation system then, or how do they follow it if they're...
Well,
Well, originally, of course, we did it all with track and motors.
Yeah,
And in some instances, of course, we had to fill in. And in other instances, we had to rip the roof off in order to make the transportation by rail work. With the change in the equipment from conventional mining to continuous mining, then we got to belt systems. And belt systems, of course, being as flexible as they are, or can be made flexible, tend to follow the contour of the diggings.
this saves money in
money.
in production terms, doesn't it?
Production
To not have to fill and lay track
Correct.
and so forth. Is the belt efficient? Do you find, in other words, is it a good transportation system?
It is a good
Consider-
transportation
yeah.
system.
It's because this is one of the serious problems in coal, you know, and in copper, a number of.
It's a good
I
transportation.
don't know what about the rumors. I don't know whether they're true or not, but they claim that PCA gets their muck out of the mine about 7 or 8% cheaper than the other mines that's operating conventional mining. Now, I don't know whether that's
I would think that would be true.
That would be true?
Would be true. It's eliminated a number of employees who track helpers, trackmen, motormen, nippers.
Well, how do you compare it with the other mines? Duval, Southwest, U.S., whatever the others are, IMCC. Do they still use track, or have they all moved in this direction?
Well, most of them, and I haven't been in any of them in years now, Mike, but
Yeah.
when I was full-time president, I visited National.
Mm-hmm.
They were using conventional type systems. Each of the mines in the area has one or two continuous miners. And some of them have now, National, for example, has gone completely to belt system.
Let me back up on the people again. You told me that the core original group of employees were Finlanders, but by 1948, when you entered the mines, what percentage of the people were Texans, Arkies, and Okies?
I'd say
Roughly.
90% of it
Okay.
can be categorized.
Yeah,
that way.
okay. So the Finlands had become not an insignificant, but an important minority.
An important
They were
minority.
strong union members, I take
were
it,
very
and they
strong
had a
union
good ethnic grouping.
Background.
They were intelligent, European-type trade
Right.
unionists, I assume, and they lent a certain cultural tone, didn't they, to the
They sure
community?
did.
Can you describe, like, as strangers to it, out of different backgrounds, each of you. We haven't identified Jack, but you're from where in West Virginia originally?
Paw, West Virginia.
Paw, we got to be sure about that. P-A-W, P-A-W, yeah, right. It's not on any map.
That's
But
on
I
the
just want to
Potomac
be
River,
clear.
about 100 miles.
We have, in Marion County, West Virginia, we have a little Paw Creek, but Jack's from the original Paw,
The original Paw,
which is a
named
town
after a Paw apple.
east of that.
Oh, they grew apples there too?
Yeah,
right.
they grow apples there.
Don, you lived in the country actually before you went. I mean, a lot of your raising was on a ranch. Is that? Am I wrong on that, or a portion of it
Well, it was in the mountains.
in the mountains?
It's kind of a little farm ranch.
I just judge because you're always interested in desert and outdoor, that you were outdoors a great deal, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were more like the kind of cowboy kind of kids that were from farms or ranches around here that went into these mines.
Farming, and then we moved from there down here. We ranched some and raised hogs for a while, so a little bit of everything.
Did a little bit of everything, huh? And is that where you got your love of the outdoors? And you
I
think,
guess, 'cause I've
as you
always
developed
worked
it,
outside.
animals, and you still keep horses and what all else? Almost anything on
Birds.
4 legs or 2,
Mm-hmm.
like birds?
Birds, chickens, horses,
Okay.
dogs.
Anything that'll grow, huh?
I think one of the interesting things, Mike, is the makeup of the people, really.
Go ahead and
When the mines
discuss
came
it,
in-
Alan.
When the mines came in,
What?
when the mines came in,
Yeah,
being,
go ahead
As
and
I told
tell
you,
about
the
that.
ethnic groups came in first from
Yeah.
Colorado. And so on. There were many people in this area who worked on farms, who worked on ranches, who were making in the neighborhood of $50 a month.
Mm-hmm.
The mines started off
Mhm.
paying $150 a month or thereabouts.
Yeah, right.
And many of the people who are still at PCA, who are about to retire and who've been with the company 25, 30, 40 years, are those kind of people who came off, they were cowboys, really.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
detracting from
No,
them.
no,
I'm simply
no,
saying
but
that
these were isolated ranching backgrounds.
right, the economic condition
Nearest
here-
neighbors were miles away,
Right.
that type of
and,
thing.
and then they just came to town and went to work at the mines for 100.
This was sort of a good deal, you'd have to call it that. But I
At
mean,
that point.
okay.
That,
And then didn't the Union actually achieve a status, mine mill achieve a sort of status at one point, you correct me if I'm wrong, where probably these were the best paid miners on the North American continent?
At one time,
With the
we-
best fringe
we
benefits.
were the best paid miners in
Didn't
the
you
country.
have, you had sick
Yeah,
leave, you had
fringe
things
leave,
that no other, the
no
coal
other-
miners
no-
still don't have.
Still
I mean,
don't
yeah,
have.
right.
Correct.
So that you've fallen behind for a variety of reasons, the split in the labor movement and the economics of the potash industry. But my impression from my early contact with potash was that you had at one point been above everybody else in head and shoulders.
Correct.
And today I'd have to say in all fairness, I think the copper miners have you beat and the coal miners, you probably have lagged. And I don't mean it. Even though they don't have sick leave, probably on an even dollar amount, you've lagged.
We may be somewhat better off on a fringe benefit situation, but on an economic straight dollar basis, I'd say we're anywhere from 50 cents to 90 cents behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's per hour.
And you've looked into this because you've been in bargaining a great deal.
Correct.
Have you felt relatively helpless as a bargainer for the union potash miners in recent years, you think? And what's the essence of that helplessness, if you had to describe it?
Well, of course, the essence of the helplessness would be the fact that, and I speak using the union vernacular, is the lack of militancy amongst the people who are working here today.
Mm-hmm.
And second, the fact that the potash industry, it's not an isolated industry, and it's not by itself, but it's in a situation, economically speaking, where new discoveries have made it easier to dig the potash someplace else rather than in Carlsbad, New Mexico.
But especially Canada.
Yeah,
Canada's the
particularly
biggest single
Canada.
factor.
Right.
Have you lost your foreign markets, your export markets, or are they still
Certainly
in
have.
existence?
We
To
have
Canada, for the most
We
part?
have a portion of it by dint of geographically where we're situated in terms
Yeah.
of ports, but in the main we've lost it to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost it because my company has a parent company, has another company producing potash in Canada where we can export.
And let's take each of the mines. IMCC is here. International Minerals in Canada. Do they have a Canadian
Yes.
subsidiary? Who else has a Canadian subsidiary?
IMCC has one, PCA has one, Duval has one.
So that's three of the biggest producers here could shut this down almost as those
Southwest
became.
Potash, or AMAX, is one of the largest corporations. Is also have a deal with IMCC to mine by IMCC employee AMAX production holdings.
Where? Up in
Canada.
Oh, they bought the holdings and have a deal where IMCC will lease or operate them.
This is due to a proration system.
See, this is a, this gimmick to try to beat